I wasn't sure.
Some of you may have, or may not.
An old multi-unit?
Yeah. Added some things to it. So maybe. And we can go through that with you this afternoon, show you some other things. Kind of what you need. I will say that we are in no way authorities on it. We have done it, we do it very well, but a lot of it has been trial and error. We don't have all the answers. You may have more answers to some of the stuff that we do. So don't think that what we're doing is the gospel, because it really isn't. It's just something that when we started out, I started by myself. I did individual jobs in a little white van. I got to the point where after 6 months, I thought this was the dumbest thing I've ever done. But after about 9 or 10 months, it began to come along, and I was getting busier and busier. So what I did at that point was I tried to schedule any kind of condominium or apartment work that I could. And then I did individual jobs when I couldn't do that. So I was doing them both, but I was doing it all myself. And the first couple of communities, I brushed. And so I would go and I put signs up on each of the door of like 2 12-unit buildings. People would put their name on it. And I'd go back on a certain day, which was designated on the paper, and I'd go clean all those with a brush and get inside on every one of them. It's very time consuming. But that's the way I started building it. So not every day was I busy when you're starting out. But that's why I got so busy. Some days I do all the some days I do just kind of that way. By the end of this, in 2007, I was doing 6 jobs a day. I couldn't really do it. And I had to do occasionally some of these multi-unit things. So I did hire a guy to start writing with me. And he rode along probably from about Labor Day till November. Really busy, and so I said, Doug, you want to take my van? I'll go get another one. You do all the jobs we've got, and I'll do the excess that you can't get. Well, as I was driving back with my new van, I was having problems with my back. My back was killing me. Make a long story short, in November, I had bypass surgery, but it wasn't back as hard. And so that gave me an opportunity to start finding other people that would do this work. So I found another tech to take my new van, and I spent my time recuperating and calling people on the phone. Sort of, they tell you go to business school, you need to learn to work in the business stuff, or not work on the business side of anything. So I was working on the business, and I had these other guys working in the business. And that's the way we developed that over a period of time. That was in 2007. We got busier all the time in 2008. 2009 was even busier. I had another surgery, so the person to work in my place, took another van. That's the way we built it over 3 or 4 or 5 years. And so we're to this point where now we have basically 6 guys doing individual jobs, and then we have these other guys doing multi-unit. We've done the multi-unit. I think 2009 was the first time we started using compressor. We'd never done that before, and so the first job we went to, we worked for about 45 minutes. Compressor wouldn't work right. We bought it from Eaton Compressor, which is about 45 minutes away, so we shut everything down. And I drove it up to Eaton Compressor and said, "You have to help me fix this because we're in the middle of a job. We can't do anything. I got guys standing around, I'm paying them." So they fixed it right on the spot and went back, and we continued to operate that way. And so everything that you've seen, everything that we do, are things that we have just learned on at the School of Hard Knocks. We do sometimes we make big mistakes, and my only goal here with you is to help you answer your questions, let you see what we do. Like I said, it's not the gospel, it's not final, because you're going to have to take what we do. You can use any of it you want to. You can alter it, make it better, and just figure out what works for you in your own community. So that's kind of how we got where we are. Like I said, we made a lot of mistakes. We altered what we have done several times. And it doesn't make any difference if you started in the last year or two or if you started 15 years ago. Corporate has never really done much as far as training. And so I think it's probably a couple of years in after we had started, and maybe you can remember Rick. Dave Lavelle was kind of our go-to guy. Everybody called him for everything. And he was very helpful. Most of us couldn't have survived without him. But one day he decided he wasn't going to do Driver's Wizard anymore. He just disappeared. And so all of a sudden you call his number and it no longer works. And so a lot of the wizards got all worked up and they would call each other, and say, what are you going to do? And finally, I just said, it's your business. It's in your area. You got to make it work. You got to figure it out, whatever it is. And that's the way this is right now. This is your business. It's not really the way corporate is set up to do training. Now, we have done training for years. In fact, we used to have Dave come at least once a year, maybe twice a year, and work with our technicians just to do individual jobs. We go over the basic things every year, and what we found out is every time we did that, even though we spent 1 day, 1.5 days, our sales always went way up. Because we reminded people to do things that they've already been told that they can lackadaisical with. I always relate the story about one time I was in the insurance business, and to sell life insurance, they gave us this little book. The name of the book was called You'll Earn a Fortune, but you actually will earn a fortune in your lifetime. What you do with the money, that's important. So you follow this book, it's about 8 pages. You go through that with the part. At the end of the book, on the back cover, there's a picture of an old man standing by the seashore with a hat on his suitcase. And there's a ship that's pulling away. It says old age. And so the closing was, with 50 years to make it, he still missed the boat. And if you use that, you make a sale almost every time. But what happens is as time goes on, you quit using it because you got professional. You got really good at what you did. So when your sales go back down, then the manager would say, are you using that You'll Earn a Fortune book? I don't use that anymore, because I pretty well got this down. And he said, get the book out, use the book. Simple, and you can use it. So you get the book out, you say, well, that's kind of the way this is. And so whenever we'd have Dave come and go through just the basics, talk about how we do it. Don't forget about washing machine hoses and lead crate brushes, just little things like that. Our sales always went back up. And what we haven't done lately, whether it's our fault or corporate or whoever, is we haven't done training. And so my goal here was, if you were interested, we could show you and tell you what we do, and then you got to take it from there. There ain't any question that we have done well, but we certainly don't have all the answers. So I just thought we'd take a minute here before we eat and let you kind of recap or rethink what you've seen this morning. So if you have any questions that you thought of while we were at the job site, we can answer. And then after we eat, we'll go through some other things. Brenda's put together a lot of statistics and things like that we have done, how we've grown. Like I said, we started not doing any multi-unit dollars. But I've always thought there are 3 levels of this business. It's multi-unit, residential, and then sort of what I call commercial, which is everything else. Beauty salons, hospitals, nursing homes, dog groomers, just all of those kind of things. It's another whole line of business. And what we've tried to do is develop each one of those lines. And we are doing, I think, really well with the individual stuff. I believe we did 35,000 last week with just individual jobs, no multi-unit. And we lost business. We had people cancel because they get somebody sooner, or they did it themselves or whatever. So I kind of feel like that if we could find another good person to work, we can grow more. So those opportunities are all yours. I'm sure you're all as capable as I am, probably more so. You can do the very same thing. You just have to stick with it. Anybody got any questions or Any comments about anything you saw? Brenda, you got anything to do that? Brenda's my brains. In fact, she's told me things I should say and things I shouldn't say. Some I try to have my things. But I couldn't do this without her. That's probably what a lot of you need, or you're going to get to that point. Because when she goes through a lot of the stuff that we do that's sort of the background, what you saw this morning, it gets to be, there's what I call a lot of administrative. But, and if you don't do that, you miss out on a lot of business, a lot of sales, a lot of things you can do if you're in a bad climate to where you can do when it's either too hot or too cold. And that's how we've added to what we do, is we pick up a lot of this excess business.
I think most of your multi-unit, now probably word of mouth, but when you first started multi-unit, you know, how did you advertise that? Not the same advertising. How did you do it?
I've really never advertised Citizen multi-unit. The first thing that happened, I can tell you, I know exactly where it was. There's this little lady called me. I've told this story before, so you may have heard. This little lady called, said, "Wow, I need you to come and look at my dryer vent, I think, because my dryer gets really hot when I run it. And my husband is sort of incapacitated. That if something happened, this place caught on fire, there's no way I can get him out of here. So can you come and look at that?" So I went and looked at it. Her vent was completely filled up. And so we cleaned it. When I got finished, right here, I'm up here working on her vent, and right next to it is another dryer vent. And so we got hers clean, but there's hair hanging out of one next to it. And I said, "Wanda, we got your vent clean, but your neighbor's gonna burn your house down." So she went to her neighbors in that 12-unit building and got them to let us come fix it, protect her. So I said, "Wanda, who's your property manager?" She told me, property management company. So I went all the way home, which was probably about 50 miles. Got one of those little digital cameras we had back in 2007. Went back, took a picture, took it to Walmart, made 8 to 10s of it. And then I called the manager of the managers, that's property management companies. And I said, "I need to talk to you about what's going on at Bridgehaven with your dryer vents. Can I come to one of your meetings?" And she had like 15 property managers. So, "Yeah, we got a meeting on Thursday. You're welcome to come." So I stopped at Panera, got some bagels, went to their meeting, passed out all these pictures, said, "This is one of your communities, and I can't tell you that you're going to be in trouble, but if one of these places catches on fire and somebody dies, you're probably going to be held somewhat, one of the pictures, accountable because you didn't do this." And so I said, "I'm not hurt, so I don't know what's going to happen. But you need to pay attention to this." So they all kind of scratched their head and murmured to one another, and nothing happened. So a few months later, I kept working with different people. I'd go to a condo community and do one event. And I would say, "Who's the property manager? Who's the president of your company or your community?" And if I was there, I would go to that property, that president's unit, knock on the door. "Say, this is who I am. That's what we do. Here's my card." The first time I did that was in the spring of 2007. And in February of that year, my 10-year-old grandson and I passed out flyers to every community, every unit in the community. That's for February. Got 0 calls. Then I had this person call that needed some work done, and that's when I asked who the president is. So I stopped by the president's house, knocked on the door, gave him the stuff. And then he called me again in the summer, said, "What would it cost for us to do that?" I gave him price, never did hear from him. The next year he called and said, "I think we're ready to do that." So it takes all this time and effort. You have to have somebody call. So it's pretty much been word of mouth all the time. And then when you do a really good job with property managers, they will refer you and they like it because you're taking much effort. So that's the way we have done the whole thing. Now my guys, they're all out working. They go to kind of community today, they will come back with the sheet. And I think we have maybe one of those in folder. that says, this is the property, this is the property management company, this is the property manager, this is phone number, this is the email, all that kind of stuff. We do our best to follow up on those communities. And sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't. Oftentimes, it may take a year, 2, 3 before you get it. Sometimes your competition will beat you to it. But when they find out that you begin to develop a relationship with the property manager, then they want you to. That's like this community we were in. I was scrambling for somebody because we've got most of our communities done for this year. We've got a couple big ones to do, but they're like an hour away, and I didn't want you guys driving that far. So I tried to find one closer, so I called one of my managers. And I said, hey, Kate, this is what I got going. I got people coming. They would like to see us do multi-unit cleanings. You got a community we can do. I'll just do it for free. She just thought that was great stuff. So she gave me this community. We've never done it before. The community didn't feel like they could afford to do it. So now we've done her favor. We've done community favor. Some of you were there when President Association walking her dog came out and said, I've been telling my parents, the vets in my building, they don't invented the outside, they're invented in the attic. So I don't mind paying you to fix those. Well, we're going to put in 4 roof vents and no telling what else. And so we've done the manager a favor. Now we're doing the community a favor. And the President Association is happy, so she's going to be all right. But lives in another. And so that's just the way it's spread. Unfortunately for you all, it takes time. I've road suffered with it. And that's the way we go.
And do you have a read check when you do more? Or everybody?
We have somebody that's kind of in charge. Okay. Those younger guys do a really good job, and they're way better climbing the ladder and so forth than the older guys. That's why today Adam was there. But you need somebody that looks a little older, a little more. Sometimes we send, if we need to, I'll pull one of the guys off of the regular job, send them just so there's somebody there. I've had calls more than once. People in the meeting say, I got a bunch of kids working. Yeah. They're legal, but they aren't. So anyway, that's kind of.
One of them down in Marigold.
What's that? Oh,
One
yeah.
of them down in Marigold.
Right. Had a whole bunch of calls on it. And with this home act that we just did, I'm kind of paranoid about this stuff. Remember that home act? I had 6, yeah, you can all have one of those. This month we're on the front cover. It's $4,900. 4,900. And we've had it at smaller end for several months. And first came by a month ago and said, I think, we'd like to get you a little bigger pay. I said, said, without thinking, I said, only thing I'd do is you give me on the front cover and do that one. She said, well, we just have to have November until the month we got the next one. So you get the front cover and you get a full page on page 4. Well, it just came out, I think, Monday, and we haven't got a lot of
So just what's the target to like
home services. But yeah, started to,
dialogue with me?
yeah. And this is way.
We took the full page inside for December on my Dallas, and it covers 130,000 homes for us, but it targeted the income, value of the home, age of the home. They guarantee not to mail to any renters, only homeowners, no multi-units, and the only people they mail to that's not a homeowner is they do mail to RCs and designers. It's home improvement.
We've been using them, we did a half page, I think it was $1,200 for 3 months, and we've done a quarter page for 3 months, and that's been 23 years. On average, we get about 17 calls is what we get a month.
Well, for me, myself, and other franchise, with Charles up in Dallas, split because of $5. So we split the cost of it. So for the full page, it's $1,100. It's the Christmas magazine, and they also do a home and garden show, which they feature some that. No,
Oh.
for the Christmas. And then the following month it goes down. The Christmas magazine is more. No, it comes up these yourself. Not at all part of your.
When you started doing multiple, did you get involved in the CAI organizations? But now you have enough variety that you don't need it.
I've always thought from day one, really, that this whole business is based on education. But when I started, people say, "You're doing what? Make a living." And so people didn't think about it, didn't know about cleaning a dryer vent or servicing. And we worked hard on educating people to where they know that's important. And so now more and more people have been educated about that, which has made it possible then for the dryer vent squad to get started a little easier because we've already educated people. So they just opened up in the spring. Squad, and then there's another company that's got a lot of these cities around all and what else we have? Oh, the guys they laugh about this. So we had a job with an old guy. It's been last winter probably, and he went online and wrote that we did a really good job, but we were really expensive. So he was going to start a new company. The new company called the Lint Liberator. He had his own hand drawn emblems and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, we have competition. But it's mostly there's 2 or 3 like Stanley Steamer and Tisdale Fenton is a similar company. Coy, a lot of those companies, but they don't do what we do. They clean vents. They'll clean it direct. So halfway. A lot of times we get called in after.
Do a lot of those people charge like $300, $400, $500 just to clean the vent? They're charging $400 just to clean the vent.
But they're doing air vent. And a lot
Yeah,
of
we're
those,
saying-
they'll tag me,
Yeah.
right, if you do the air vents, we'll do the dryer vent for
Free.
25.
No, the Derby Squad has published their.
It was like $99 at one point. They were, they're, yeah. But they just started getting training to sell the innovative products now. So they weren't selling anything before. Their model was to have about 8 appointments a day just to make that $1,000.
We met with the Derby Squad owners a few weeks ago. The guy that, when they opened up, we kept getting this call from this guy. His name was Jason Utsky. And we looked up and saw that was the guy that owned Driving Squad. So one day, he calls back. I had a message to call. Her name sounds familiar. So she looked it up and it was the Driving Squad guy. So I just called him up and I said, "Hey, I guess you're checking on the competition, huh?" And he was like, "Good." So then, and he was a nice guy. But since then, he's wanted me to go along with him and all that stuff. So a month or so ago, I said, "Yeah, I'll leave." So he was really intent on trying to find out what our pricing was. Finally, he just said, "You're not going to tell me about the pricing." I said, "No, right."
Yeah.
But he told me what theirs was.
Yeah.
And so
Theirs is already public.
some of it was, but multi-unit is what he was really getting at. And he said, "I still think I can do it for less than $60." How's that sound? Sounds good to me. Brenda just averaged out yesterday, our average price on molding units is $41. So $60 sounds good. So you know, you really don't have much competition and they can't do the business. So there is competition.
No, in training. Well, they're doing a training for the jar, our jars, why get offered?
Grass squad doesn't get much training.
Yeah.
That was a problem.
Oh, they didn't?
Like a day and a half training is about all they get when they got franchise.
Yeah, what's to, that and put a bunch of food down.
Yes, I know they're providing the training.
They have been coming up, as a matter of fact, open to
I
anybody.
think they said they charged $15,000
Really?
for a day's training.
They just put one out for $300. It's like $300 per person. So,
If you wanted to do it.
want to go down there,
What are they training? How to use their product or?
but yeah, pretty much some sales techniques. and that.
If you'll go through a lot of the stuff that in, I guess it's in Portal now, or is that in CES that they put? There's not all of that training is in there. If you'll go through that, which you can. Last time we went through that just online here with architects, and they did their certification or the need environment. And we did some of that stuff. It's pretty important.
Yeah, the reason we had to do the hands-on training. And like you said, every time we did that, even my lead gen. Yeah,
That's just because you're doing things that you gotta forget about. We found out, Adam was here a couple of weeks ago, and we were working with one of our guys, and he said, well, I can tell you why he's not doing so well. He's not using the press book. And it's proven fact, you use the press book, your sales will go up about 30% if you lay that out in front of your customer. So,
You can use the tablet?
well, yeah, how that's gonna work.
Yeah. You know, my guys said they have broke out their Pokemon.
That's good.
You can still show the book, I guess.
Yeah.
More pluses than there is minus.
Have you found, particularly like property management companies, have you ever done like any sort of gifting or anything like that? Those relationships?
It's hard to say how it works, I think, because it's not immediate. But we give out Christmas, like gift cards. We do. So every year at Christmas, we do give all of those people that we think have made a contribution to what we do. And it depends on what they have done for us when we give. It could be anywhere from $100 down to 10. Something you might even think about, we even send a gift card to the call center people, all the call centers. Because for a long time, I didn't use the call center at all, because I think I can answer the phone and get more activity than they can. But when I got to where we were answering 125 calls a day, we were just about ready to blow your head off on the other day. So we broke down and started using the call center. And for the most part, they do a pretty good job, I think. And it's kind of a thankless job, really. I mean, they don't get much attention. And even some of the administrative assistants for your property managers, they're the ones that help you out. We had one property manager that sent us some business, but I had dealt a few times with her assistant. So at Christmas, we sent the assistant a card too. And she called back and said, you know, I've done this for 15 years, and I've never, ever had anybody give me a gift for Christmas. So that means a lot to people. I used to take gift cards to repair centers. I don't do as much of that anymore. Who else do?
We also have done things where we've gone into, like property management meetings. When they have, manager of the managers usually has a meeting and you can take moments in and then let you do a pitch. We do a big thing where there are property managers and management companies that use us so another thing they try to do is get those managers to share their experience with the other managers. That way they can say, I use them, they do all, we have one guy, he gave us all of his communities except one. Because he had another company that had done it. It was a 600 unit community, and he just said this year, I'm giving it to you. You do it right. I know if I have a problem, you go take care of it. I don't want to have to mess with it anymore. They're all yours. And so we have one property manager that if she has a problem with something that's even obscure, like she had a problem with birds in one place that they were trying to put things up, she knew we had ladders, she called, wanted to know if we could do that for her. And we did, because she gives us all of her communities every year. And so just relationships like that just continue to build, and then they talk to the other managers. It's all networking. It's all getting people to respect what you do. And when you do a good job and you take care of them, they'll send you your business and you don't really have to worry.
And the CAI, as you mentioned, that's a good place. Here it's a pretty good sized organization. It's really made up of property managers and homeowner association boards. And so I've done a couple of presentations to the group, and they usually have 75 to 100 people. And so that's a really good organization to get involved in. I've not really been involved. I go to some of their meetings, and I've got to do a couple of presentations with, like John Riley in New York. I mean, he's big time. I mean, I think he's been the president of the local association and all kinds of stuff. And so those kind of things, if you have an inclination to do that, that's really good. It really gets you in to meet those people. And I always tell the boys this, we're not the cheapest, but we're the best. And people begin to understand that, the kind of work they do. So as a result, you have people calling in. Like I told somebody the other day, one of the jobs I did early on, that was a hard job. When I got done, the lady said, this ceiling light here in my dining room is not working right. Do you think you could help me fix that? That's it. No, it's not mine. But you'll get people start to ask you to do other things because you're doing the job. And that's hard to find.
Have you ever done any of the booth at CAI, like the annual meeting that they have?
Like a booth, you know what I mean? Like we've done a couple of those. Yeah, they're okay. They're good. I mean, here, what I've tried to do is to build a brand. And that's why we're ahead of other people, is because I've spent a lot of money on building the brand instead of paying myself. And so when we started out, we were probably spending between 15 and 20% of our income on marketing and advertising. But now, like I said earlier, we are more recognized than in most communities. So,
What were some of those marketing pieces when you first started out? I know that there was some point you were across the board. I know the television piece of it, but did you see a return on television that early on, or is that later on down the line?
no, it was pretty much
Immediately.
it's
I didn't recognize it, but go to
yeah.
What good about it?
Yeah. And that's what you're looking for, not that you're the guy on TV.
Yeah.
Right.
People
Well, yeah,
recognize
but they
who you
recognize-
are and what you're doing. And that's like, I think that's probably from you. Some of those big areas, there's a lot of people, there just hasn't been enough education, enough branding.
We're trying to do,
No, it's
we're trying, like all five franchises and DFW together, and unfortunately, nobody can agree on anything to do marketing together. 'Cause
Well-
my goal is to try to get us all pulled together and be able to pay for something worse than this.
Well, you can ask Brenda. I've talked for years about, see, our territory is, when I started, they just said, we need franchisees. Name your territory. So I named the Cincinnati greater metropolitan area. So with Cincinnati, it's kind of confusing, I think, because there are 7 counties in our territory. 3 of them are in Kentucky. And so I named all 7 counties. We got them all. So that's 2.5 million people. But I've always thought, especially in the last, since the 2016 election, when Trump was going to rebuild the bridge across the Ohio River, it's been a problem.
for years.
And politicians have fought over that, and it's still not done. So this last year, they decided to do some work on it, rebuild it, repaint it, and so forth. They need to replace it, because it's carrying 10 times more cars than it's supposed to. All these days, you'll see it's finally, Brenda doesn't like to drive. But I've said, we need to sell off Kentucky, because it's too far away. It's 25 miles to the river from here. But we have good business. There are parts of that road in Kentucky that's pretty special. And so every time I hear you do that, Brenda says, then how are we gonna do our marketing? Get the TV and cut it off the river. You know? And what if we get somebody from Monterey to do it?
And even with Home Mac, like Charles and I are doing it, we cover Dallas County together. Luckily, Home Mac has 3 different magazines they put out in the DFW area. I wanted to do all 3, but the other 3 franchisees didn't want to do it, so we ended up only doing 2 of us and limiting. So when I covered all of our area, we're covering most of our area. Anything bigger than the magazine, we're going to do that together. We're doing RCP together. Anything bigger than that, I can't get anybody else to agree to it, and I'm going to be advertising and paying for.
That's the reason we haven't sold off it. What else you got?
One question, Brendan, in Orlando, you were saying that you send a report to the property managers after they're done, like on today's property, would you can do it on a property like today's?
Yep, everyone,
And who's keeping track of everything that's seen there?
those boys.
Okay,
They writing it down?
so you'll get a report from them.
Mhm.
That's,
And I'll go over in detail later, some of the information that we put in the binder are examples of things that I've sent to property managers, so you can kind of see what we're doing. But every community that we do, the boys take notes. And every community, every person's style is different. We try different things. We have forms. Now, they're all taking the notes on their phones.
okay,
And a lot of times they can take pictures. And then I can just send the picture to the property manager and circle it in on the picture that says, this one's broken, this one's broken, this one's not attached. But they get all of that, and it, we tell them specifically, this is what this is what we did, this is what we cleaned, these are the ones with if there are concerns, you have to decide amongst yourselves who's responsible for what, who's gonna pay for it, is the property manager, is it the HOA, what are you gonna do, or the homeowner, how you're doing it. And then, we get some of that business back and do it when it gets older, and it takes a lot of orchestration, but we've made some really good money on doing repairs. Plus, then it also puts the liability back on them. I've put it all in writing. I've given it to them. If something happens, which in 1 year, 4 of the communities that we cleaned all came up in the news they all had fires. And whenever that happens, I hurry up and open my phone and look through it. None of them were dryer fires. They were all something else. But they all know that the liability is on them, whether it's got oil, whether it's got broken vents, if the vent covers are bad, everything. So the boys will come in and give me all that information, and I go, it takes some training, but for the most part, they know. I mean, the crew, we struggled through that every time. We always have at least one person that's designated that he's gonna be there. And so when the boys are cleaning, the guys are actually doing it, yell down and say, this one's broken. Or, today one was boarded over, so it's been covered up, they put a new roof on it, and they haven't finished it. So they'll write all that down and give it back to them.
The vent is made out of foil. You also put the whip in there.
We know there's spoil vents. We tell the community, and if we break them, they waiver of liability for those. There are some wizards that had declared at one time that they had foil vents that wouldn't fold. And I struggled with that a long time. Then I decided to do the waiver thing. If we know that, have them sign off, they know they're foiled, if they're broken, which they likely will be if we check them, that they're responsible for it. And we'll fix it if they want us to, they get somebody else to fix it, we don't care. But decided that's better than, and then we won't do it. And then they either get somebody else that don't do it at all. And so then the community is still at risk.
When you do that to the floor, you just using a drawer, like what, how are you bending that?
No, we use air. If you're careful with it, you can weave it in there. Doesn't do a good job.
So how do you get it with the air? You need like a blower?
No, the air from the hose.
The air hose?
Like,
The blower, like the, you know, the airline, and it's not, it doesn't, the spinner doesn't tear it, like, cause we've gotten caught in a lot
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
And they
Then
get
that,
close.
it's broken and
Yeah.
yeah, they say.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you bring your lead check more than your other checks?
What more do we pay the lead bill?
The group that we have working now, they're all making.
They all make.
Oh, okay.
In the summer when we have, you have to be really careful with that because we've got one tech that we enlist to help us a lot. That he's a little peculiar maybe. I don't know. But he's really all about making money. And so he does good. He did 1,700, his check was $1,700 last week. And so to put him on at $18 an hour, $1 a bed, that's not really quite enough. So we try to figure out what I did most recently with him is I figured what his average is, doing regular jobs, and that's what I paid to do the day's work.
So you crossed them over. You dressed
Some.
the guys and most.
All of our guys can do
Me
either.
too, yeah.
Yeah, all of them can do. Some do better than others. Some we know where to, some of them need to be doing residential jobs. Some can do both.
What's your typical training time on the job?
We did 3 weeks. 3. Usually the first week they ride with somebody, knows what they're doing. Second week they start doing the work. The third week they do it. And the trainer watches. Helps them out. Residential job. Usually. Sometimes it takes longer. They can do it. Our goal is to get them on a percentage. We don't like to pay hourly. So as soon as they can make more money on a percentage than they can hourly, we get them on. Depends on the person. We've had them in 2 or 3 weeks. We've had them 6.
You're paying $18 an hour and $1 a minute, and that's for cleaning. What about if you also change the vest?
When we change the vent covers, I pay them for a vent vest.
The outside dollar per vest?
We don't pay $1 now. We just pay them. I used to pay $4 a vent cover. Now I think we're paying $5, sometimes $6, depending on how hard they are. So I do that. We use a lot of P-TEC. We don't use as much Innovate vent covers in a big job because they're so more expensive. And they'll put you out of the market for doing the job. You won't rent the job. So with the P-TEC, we pay about $7 a vent. So you got $7 a vent. I pay the technician $5, $12. And I'm getting 32, 35, 39 for the job. So we've got one guy, the guy that just selling bonds, that's always money. And he's really able to work because he marks the money. And he does an excellent job. So 80 a day, he's making $5 a minute.
But they're not changing the vents out the same day though, are they?
The vent covers,
The vent covers.
sometimes we, in
Oh,
that case, we
it's
send
already approved?
another, if it's,
Oh, okay, but if they're
it
not.
isn't always, like today, we'll have to go back and do that.
Yeah.
That's what
So how do you pay them when you have to go back?
same place, same way.
Same way, okay. Okay, so you send the same check?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a community, we did this community, and Brenda's got this information for you that we did last year. We call it Pigeon Forge. Because it's a big community, about 300 units, and they had pigeon problem. They had 6-inch vent covers high on the building for microwaves. And they were being inhabited by pigeons. And so we put up no pest vent covers on those 6-inch vent covers. And it ended up being a $41,000 job. And that's phase one of this community. Phase two, they asked us to come and do this year. And so we have already got that scheduled. We've already done the cleanings, we've already been. If we have time on our schedule, we can do it at the same time, since they've already okayed it, but we don't.
How much are you charging for that?
I don't know.
How many units were there?
Well, there was 300 units. So they've each got 2 bedrooms, bath, and a microwave. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's a lot.
So you put the all.
Pardon?
So you really put all.
Everything's got no vest. So that's a big job. But it was a good job.
And I couldn't hear a video. How much did you say you're paying your guys for
I'm
that?
paying $5 a minute. Covered. And you can do whatever you want to. The more you charge, probably the more you can pay it. And be careful, vent covers are not everybody's cup of tea. You know, some guys have a hard time putting them up and make them look decent. They put them up right so they're square in the middle and they don't stay open when they close, they stay open. Cracks and birds can still get in there. So you have to really be careful. We've got a couple of techs that are terrible. We don't ask them to do. We just, and they're slow.
They're not getting an hourly wage on top of that. It's
Right.
straight commission.
So you figure if you can get $5 a minute, you can put up 4 or 5 an hour, you can make $25 an hour. That just has to be something that you have to play with, and try to decide what you want to pay and how much you want to make. What kind of deal you can get on vent covers. We really like to use the Innovate, but they're so much more expensive when you get in a job that's got 500 vent covers and there's $20 difference in the price. Most of the time, we have to tell you, we're not doing that. Even like that.
How do you track that now that I think about it? So if you have them, you're paying them $5 a vent. Is that person then, when you have crews on there and sometimes they'll work together, one cleaning, one good, how do you track that to make sure? Or is everybody getting paid, not everyone's getting paid $5?
They all get paid $5, but they get paid.
So
They
have to keep
have
track
to keep track of how many they put up. It should come out something close to how many totally have.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've never really had a problem with that. I think you guys are pretty honest. But it's pretty obvious when you send 2 or 3 people, one guy puts up 80 and one puts up 20 at the same time period. You know, who you want to do the work. We got food?
We have to, there's sandwiches, not like crazy up there.
We got water and soft drink. We're non-alcoholic, dude. So.
Well, that was a part of the training.
It's 11:30. It's time for a couple of drinks.
So help yourself, and we'll continue a little bit.
You told me that some markets will not do good. But everything good, so you might be. You find like. You can schedule on your time. You got 3 times. They want it.
You missing somebody? you guys are ready to start, we're
Yes, we are.
gonna go through a couple things. I have Brenda do a bunch of this talking. She knows much about all this as I do. She's worked here since 2009, something like that. There's really nothing she hasn't done. I mean, she's done on roofs, done transitions. So she knows as much as I do, probably more. Which is not easy to do. What?
Since you're getting on roof,
She got and help with it. Cleaning one day.
oh, God.
And then Adam's in the back. He's been here a long time, and so he can also pitch in if we need help. So, you want to know about this book?
So, this book, I apologize if the binder is so small, you may want to move it to a 1 inch when you get home if you have it, but in these COVID times, you have to buy what you can get. And this is all they had for this many people. And basically the way the book's lined out, in the front pocket, I gave you promotional things that we use. The one is a multi-unit flyer. It's just call them rack cards. And that way it just has information on the front and the back. The boys can pass these out when they're out, or we can use them to take to meetings. The yellow card is the condo card. That's what they put on the doors when they're cleaning them, so they can call us if they need something. And then the other is just the one card that says, thank you for allowing us to provide services for you. The boys give this to every homeowner at every house they're in. And what it is basically it tells them if, they're happy, then tell people, if you're not happy, call us back. And it has our phone number at the office on it. So they call us instead of going on Google. And then on the back, it has a coupon for them to refer their friends. So that way they give it out, and it isn't when we get these back from neighbors that they give this card to. The other card is it's time for annual service. The boys have the homeowners fill out the address on this when they're there. If they buy the lifetime reminder, and we keep them in a file, mail them out. The $20 off coupon. This is what we give to all our fair centers, and this is what they give to their customers to refer us. Then this one, the ones about businesses, this is the one we make for all kinds of businesses that have multiple dryers. So it has everything on there from nursing homes to pet groomers, hair salons, daycare centers, which we service all of those. So the boys can pass this out when they're out. If they see a place that we've not serviced, they'll give this to them. And then this card basically explains about the lifetime reminder program. The boys leave it on the counter and the people read about it so they can find out about it. And then we give them little tips on the back, and it gives them a little reminder as to when to do it. And these are door hangers that we can put on doors around people's houses when we're servicing. So that's just some extra paraphernalia for you. Just
So
to,
most of this stuff we've developed and we've done it locally. So we have a local printer that, and you might want to check into this. You can probably get that all through ProTradeNet or be Neighborly somewhere. And we started doing this on our own before then. And we have a relationship with a printer that gives us a really good deal, way better than we can get through ProTradeNet, even though you get 2% back. So.
That's not surprising.
Pardon?
That's not expensive. Like
Yeah.
the LPR, I think it's like this sold out.
In fact, we referred like Doug in Indianapolis, he uses them, the same printer. They're just 10 miles away. And so
You need
So-
one of these
somebody-
for every customer.
we tried to.
every customer, every individual job.
I like you giving these to the RC, big postcard things, and things like
Yeah,
carry around. And somebody somewhere posted that they had business cards made up.
yeah.
Business card size that they give to the RC.
Yeah, you know what, the RC is what I found, because I'm in the area where Nancy also uses we have some of the same RC. And she had the postcards, and we had the business card, and I get more of her postcards than the business cards. So those texts in that, like, one of the locations prefer, maybe it's because the business cards are so small and they can get tossed around, and what have you, and the fan cards are a little bit more pronounced, but I get more of those back than I do with the small ones. So it lets me know they're using the postcards more than the business cards. They have both.
And then I passed out this piece of paper because it didn't make it into the binder. This is the referral sheet that the techs keep in their binder, the individual techs. So that when they go into a community and do a job and they know that, oh, I just took the You know, I just took the screen out of the roof vent and I looked and all the roof vents in this community have screens in them. Then they write this down, bring it back to us. We follow up on it to find out exactly all the information from the community. Ask the homeowner as much information as they know, who your property manager is, all that information. A lot of times it's already a property manager or a property management company we've already done work with. So it's easy for us to follow up with them. And then this is kind of paid as a finder's fee. So if we get the job, the tech that brings in the referral gets paid on this. They'll make 10% off the job. So it motivates them to get as much information and bring back because they're in multi-unit communities all the time. That we have to serve.
10% of like the whole
Total
system.
revenue?
Yeah, so if it's a $5,000 job, they get 10%, they get $500. And if we haven't always stuck with this, but if they don't do that, each 6 months, twice a year, they don't get their bonus. They all get a bonus based on what their volume is. They go over 100,000 in sales, they get 1% of that as a bonus, every 6 months. But they have to do at least one of these. So,
Turn one in or turn one out. It's a job.
Get the job.
well, they turn it on. Yeah. It's just another way, we kind of believe that if you don't work, you don't eat. And so if you work real hard, you should be compensated for it. If you bring in more business for us, then that's the way you're going to make more money. We had one guy, it's been 3 or 4 years ago, we did a training, one of the techs, he took that test that you've all taken if you're certified, he got 100% on the test. And he said, so do I can get a raise? And I said, yeah, because you're going to do a better job now. And if you get a raise, if you do a better job, you're going to bring in more money. So you're going to, on a percentage, you're going to make more money.
So basically, our whole thing is everybody who works for us is a salesperson. And every person can get more multi-unit jobs, more individual jobs. Basically, when they're out, if they stop at a gas station to get gas, they have their business cards to give to people. They can, they scout out. If they've got extra time between jobs, they carry this information with them and they'll stop by daycare centers. Or they'll stop by salons, or they'll stop by. And so they're passing out information every place they go so that the more your name is out there, the more people are going to remember who you are. Or if they get the card and then they see something else, like you're on the front of a magazine or in a commercial, somebody else talks about it, you're like, oh, I just saw information about them. So it's getting the name out there and making the brand awareness. In this binder, there is various information. The first part, okay, now first of all, the tab numbers don't mean anything. They're just tabs I put in there to divide sections. I believe in recycling. And so these are recycle tabs that I use, so it doesn't matter if tabs are 1 and 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever. The first half of the binder is all information that it was the manual on the front where it says multi-unit marketing and service manual. This is the manual that was written for multi-unit. And so this was given by corporate. So it has information in here about, how to do everything as far as getting the work. It's kind of the basic framework of how all that works. The second section is the information that it refers to as far as different examples of proposals, things that are used, multi-unit assessment forms, all that information. The last half of the binder is all information that we've shared with you that we have used with specific jobs that we have done. So we'll go through all this information and kind of talk you through, you've asked questions like, how do you do your reports? What do you share with people? All that type of stuff. And that information's in here, and there are examples of emails that we've actually sent to property managers so you can kind of see how we follow up and what we do. And yes, and even Ed's pitch that he does to HOA boards, a lot of people have asked, what do you say when you go? He's written out what pitch he has that is basically, he can do it in his sleep and says it over and over again. It's the same
It's a
pitch.
track you can run on. You don't have to use it, but
It gives you an idea.
what to say.
And in the third section, the first couple of pages, if you look at it, it's a chart that looks like this. So the very last section, this shows you, it's our sales for this year. It's not to brag, it's not to say, hey, look what we did, it's to show you, this is how our sales break down. So by month, where we are, what we do, obviously, it's what is, we have winter here, so it gets cold. So we, as you can see, we did not do a lot of multi-unit work in January and February. They were not good months for us here, some months they are. But it breaks down and shows you exactly what percentage of our work is individual and what percentage is multi-unit. And on the next page, it shows you how much we've done this year. So this year, we've cleaned 145 communities so far, which is just scratching the iceberg in this location. So, I mean, and some places are on a schedule where they do every other year. So there are 145 we did this year. Next year, there'll be 145 or 30, 140 we'll do next year that didn't do it this year. And then we keep adding new. So, and then we get more properties from the property managers, so it just keeps adding up. So if you look at it so far this year, through October, we've cleaned 12,575 vents using multi-unit work, and we have done $519,000 in multi-unit work. And if you break that down on an average, that means that we charge about $41 a vent for every vent that we clean in multi-unit work. Now, they're all different. We'll talk about the different types. You know, there's the type that you observed today, which is exterior cleaning using the air compressors. We do interior cleanings, which are priced very differently. So that's a different program. There's trunk lines. So there are different styles and they're all different pricing tiers. So that's just an average of what we've done. But that just gives you an idea of, it does make you money.
Brenda, when you go back, say, we put notes on all the doors out there today, right? When you go back and do work in a couple of those units, do you put that into your individual totals or does that go into your multi-unit totals?
If we go back and do transitions, a lot of times it'll go into it'll count towards multi-unit because it came from that program. So I'll expense it and invoice it, and it will fall into an individual job for somebody to get paid, but it will fall into multi-unit because that's how we got the.
Did you pay that different? I just
Yeah.
say you- okay.
Yeah, we make sure that the technician gets properly paid if we can, you know. So if, for instance, yesterday we had a call back on a condo community that we did. And the technician went back, he took out the clog. Actually, it was a vent that we missed, which happened. But we charged him for it. So he cleaned the vent, did whatever he had to do, but he didn't charge the resident anything. But we'll pay him as though he did the job. And that way it keeps them all happy and they get paid the work they do. We like to make sure we don't like for people to go back. We don't like for the techs to go back and do the recall on one of the other techs' work. So if we can get them to go back and do the recall work on their own, that's what we prefer. But if they have to go back and do another tech's work, we pay them for that, even though that was somebody else's mistake. Because we don't pay them much. I think it's usually $25 or $50. But then they don't mind doing that. They don't mind picking up the responsibility for that from somebody else. So we really work on trying to keep all the techs happy, and most of them, I think, if you get them off the side and ask them, they would say that this is really a good place to work. It's a really good job. So that's what we do.
So if you go back to the front of the binder, basically the way it all starts out is targeting multi work. That's what Ed talked about at the very beginning when you ask questions like, how do we get the work? It's phone calls and visiting places. It's making relationships. It's being patient. It took years before the first one actually happened. And the first one he did, he brushed them off. He sat on a curb and waited for people to come home because that was the only way to do it. And that's when we decided there has to be a better way. And so that's when we started looking into the whole idea of the air compressor. And so basically it talks on here about how to use, who you should target, property managers, site managers, facility managers, all that kind of stuff. Basically, it gives you the benefits and the selling points of what can happen. You know, the same thing that he talked about where he took pictures. One of the best things that we've done is take photos and send them. Pictures say 1,000 words and you can't make up what you're seeing. And we also take videos. So, you know, there are people that doubt what you're doing, because the one thing you have to remember with multi-unit work is when you're doing individual jobs, you have one customer you're trying to make happy. When you're doing multi-unit work, if you have 252 units, you have 252 customers, and they're watching all the time.
Especially during COVID, they were home working, videoing us from.
So we were getting videos of us doing work and with their complaints or their compliments or whatever, because as much as the property managers try to let the community know that you're going to be cleaning them, some of them don't check their email, they don't get their letter, they didn't know you were coming. Our boys have been yelled at, you woke my baby up, you know, the hose is not quiet when it goes beating through the vent. And if they're not expecting it, you know, there have been yes. There are women running out of their houses in their nightgowns yelling at them. You know, there's all kinds of stuff. And we just taught them, you just kind of roll with the punches because you kind of have to expect that that's the way it's going to be. But those people are watching everything you're doing. So we always have to tell the boys, these are the things you have to think about. You're always being watched by somebody. They're paying attention to whether or not you're cleaning it. They're paying attention to whether or not you're cleaning it up. They're paying attention to whether or not you just smashed their daffodils all over the ground. They're paying attention to whether or not you're standing on the air conditioning unit to reach the vent to clean it, which has happened, and that's a no-no. They're paying attention to whether or not the compressor's leaking oil on their sidewalk, and you have to go back and scrub it. I've done that.
Doing that.
Yes, which ours is doing now, and I've done that twice. They're paying attention to everything, and everybody likes to be either, we've had people that have actually, now that they'll have Ring doorbells, everything's recording, or they can see what's going on when they're not at home. So we actually had, a community where we were cleaning it, but where they were at, the roof was too slick to be on. So the boys got down off the roof because it was too slick and waited until later in the day to go back to clean it because it was too dangerous, so that the sun came out. But they called and yelled at us and told us that they had a video of us and we didn't clean that vent. We crawled up on there and we got down. We didn't do it. They didn't check the video where we actually got back up again and cleaned it later. So in that case, the boys had to go back out and clean it again. And there was nothing in it because we had cleaned it again. So one of the things with multi-unit work is everybody's paying attention. And so they'll either call themselves, which when we leave the card, that phone number comes directly to us, so they can call us back. And we always tell the property managers, we leave information for them to call us, not to call you. This is all on us. We want them to communicate with us. But they'll call the property manager, and the property manager will send an email and say, such and such said that you were out, and and we're like, yeah, okay. And we go check it, and everything's fine. And it's just constant communication and doing that. So.
But it does add a lot of extra steps to what you do. You have to pay attention to all this kind of stuff. People are very critical. You may know.
So it is, when it talks about benefits, it tells you all these things, and this is how you can sell it to the people as far as energy saving the community, and all that type of stuff. It talks about what it can do for your business, exactly, individual jobs, how many you can do a day, and how much you can do in multi-unit. The discount you get back for doing multi-unit work. Basic.
One thing I might say in reference to dealing with your property manager and boards, when you go to those meetings, I think I spelled it out in that pitch. But one of the things I've learned that's really helpful is that you help the property manager understand that once they let you do their vents, basically you're going to own the vent. From now on, property manager doesn't have to deal with it. So because we guarantee our work, if it gets some kind of problem, we'll go back and take care of it. No charge. And I tell the property manager, the monkey's off your back. You know, if somebody calls you about a driving after we've been in your community, you either tell them to call us, or you call us, and we go take care of it. You don't have to mess with it anymore. That's a really big deal to property managers because they get several calls a lot of times about driving. They don't want to deal with it either. So this way, you made it, you scored some points with property managers.
If they have something that actually become wrong with it, then you charge there or you just get there?
Yeah,
We have some that stuff has happened, you know.
we charge if it's a repair,
Okay.
something we didn't cause, or, you know, if we didn't do a good job cleaning it, I always tell them, well, re-clean it for no charge, even if we have to use brush.
Mhm.
But if it's broken or it's got some other kind of problem, yeah, that's their deal with that.
What do you do if you come across like wet lines? Whatnot?
We report that usually,
And that's
we
separate.
if we need to re-clean it, we will, or we don't charge. But we had one community that had 3 or 4 wet lines back probably in July, I believe. And when we went back to take care of them, they were already dried out. Because we cleaned them in, and the dryer ran, dried out the water. And it was good. So it was blocked in such a way that the dryer couldn't dry the bed out at the end of the load. So, but if it's just a cleaning issue, we do that.
We don't typically charge extra for birds,
Oh, good, you don't charge.
Not in multi.
not multi-unit. You can, depending, there are probably a couple communities that should have, because there are a couple that they had massive amounts
Yeah,
of birds.
that's something where.
And so if that's totally something that you can make a call on and, you know, decide how you want to do that. But that's just kind of, we use birds as a way to sell putting no pest nut covers on everything in the community. And so it's the next level of, you know, and we take pictures and show them, and, you know, the boys don't love the birds, but it works out.
We had some that were pretty bold that we removed the nest and they literally, after we moved over to the next one, started rebuilding.
Sure.
Right on our faces. Could you
Right.
imagine that? This is started.
Those are good ones to take a video of and send to the property manager. See what's happening.
Yeah.
What's that? If it's not too thick, but we do carry a bird hook and the rods to pull it out.
You come up in the claw, the spiral looking, Susan? Yeah, okay, like the claw.
Either one, whatever you like.
The important thing is to take videos because you have people, like, clean the net, the bird gets back to its nest in there, and then we get caught even so.
Yeah, like, you know, they started right after.
Yeah, you have to make note of it.
The other thing that we've got,
Gonna happen.
that we've been in trouble for is, and we really try to do this, we try to convince the association to replace the vent covers on the dryer vent and the bathroom fan with no vents. Because what'll happen is once the birds can't get in the bathroom with the dryer vents, they get in the bathroom. And so then we have people call saying, you didn't clean my vent. I got birds going in and out of it all the time. So we go over there and it's really a bathroom fan because they didn't want to put up no pest vent covers on the bathroom fan. So we try to get them to do them all. And we, you know, I was telling them, makes the building look more uniform and all this kind of stuff. Some do, some don't.
And depending on your property managers, if you can convince them of this, if there are 2 different vent covers that work well in communities, it's good to convince them to put, say, brown on the dryer vents and white on the bathroom fans if it works, because then when you go back to re-clean it, you know which ones are the dryer vents, and it goes much faster than, oh, great, there's a whole wall of, you know, no pest nut covers, now I gotta figure out which one's which. And most of the time, they won't care if they look good. So, one can match the trim, one can match the siding, however it works. This was talking about basing advertising, joining the networking groups, which we talked about. Networking with HOA members. One of the communities that we have the most luck with, have had the most luck with locally, is a community that actually we passed on our way over there. It's a community called Landings of Oakwood Lakes. There's more information about that community in here. Landing of Oakwood Lakes is a community that they decided early on they wanted to have the drivers clean, but they wanted to do signups. And everybody goes, ugh. Our guys don't love signups. We don't love signups, but we charge more for signups. And so this community decided they just wanted to do signups. So for about 3 years, they had people sign up. And we had an elaborate plan on how to do it and figured out how to, manage the project. And after about 3 years, I found out who was on the board, and I went to the board and I made best friends with the secretary, whose name is Eva May. I said, Eva May, here's the deal. You said you want to clean the minutes every year, and that's great, but the same people sign up every year to have their minutes cleaned. And the rest of the people are not having it. So if you're gonna have a fire and you live in this building, or you clean your vents, and they're gonna be fine, the fifth guy's gonna be the one to burn trash down because he's never cleaned his vent. And they were like, oh, we never really thought about that. And I said, it makes more sense and it's ridiculous because you realize that what we're charging, the half that are getting the vents cleaned, is more than we will charge all of you to get your vents. Really? Yeah. So she said, okay. So she went back to the board and we met with them and talked to them. And so from that point on, we cleaned all the vents every year. And they've changed all the dryer vents to no best vent covers. And they're in the process of changing all the bathroom fans to no best vent covers. And every year I go over and I walk the community with her and we look at everything and we make sure everything's fine because I made best friends with board members. And so while the property managers are great people to work with, the board lives there. The property manager just manages the property. Whether or not it looks good, whether or not it's okay, they go home and, they don't have to look at it every day. So the HOA, they're the people that you really want to make friends with because it's their home. They are the people that live there. They're the people that want it to look good. They're the people that want to take care of it. They're the people who know the people who live in their neighborhood. And Eva May knew everybody. So when we walked, she could tell me, oh, this is such and such's house. This is such and such's house. This one needs to be done. We need to talk to them about this. And so we would go through the whole thing and we learned everything about everybody in the community. And whenever they have a problem, she calls or emails me and it's all taken care of. And it's just a constant relationship.
So when you did that, who ended up paying for it, the HOA or the, oh, okay, good.
The HOA went ahead and paid for it because the way you can explain it to it always cracks me up. We always laugh about this every time. The HOA is always, the people are always like, when you call them and say, you should have your drivers, clean. And they're like, well, that's the HOA's responsibility. I'm like, you are the HOA. Who do you think pays the HOA fees? It's not like it's some mysterious thing that comes out of the sky. So a lot of the communities, what they'll do is we'll tell them, we can clean your dryer vents, and it's $30, if it's $30, $30. Just add it to their fees the next month, and that's all you have to do. Oh, I never really thought about that. Sure, we can do that. And then they write one check to us, they assess the homeowners, they pay with their HOA fees. One year, we hardly had any snow. And so that spring, we got this idea when we talked to everybody, we said, we haven't had any snow, and I bet you still have money in your budget because you didn't have to pay snow removal. How about cleaning your dryer vents? They're like, oh yeah, we do have extra money. We had a bunch of communities sign up to get the drivers cleaned that year because they didn't use snow removal. And that's why you have to start thinking about when you look at the board in there with all of the communities that are already on it, they're making their budgets now for next year. So you have to start thinking about multi-unit like ahead of yourself. You have to start thinking about, oh, they're working on budgets and their budget's probably start in January, so they're already going to have money for this. So you kind of have to, plant the seed and make sure and follow up with people who kind of say maybe they're interested. And we'll send out an email that says to like all the property managers that we know you're getting ready to plan for your budgets. Contact us so we can close your drivers for next year. And we send that out now so that next year they've already, they're starting to think about that and they can let the homeowners know about it. He said he's
One of the property managers Brent talked about earlier, that we had all of his business except one community. There were 600 units in it. He kept for this other big company. And the previous year, we had gone back a number of times to that community with individual jobs, but people could drive close. And so this manager knows we do a good job. So he has us now doing all of them, probably August. He sent me an email and said, here are all my communities, tell me what this is gonna cost next year. So I'm getting in the budget. So it's already budgeted, we know we've got those, how many, 2,000 units or whatever to do. He's already got budgeted, all we have to do is, he wants it done in May. So all we have to do is be ready to get the schedule.
Every year.
Every year.
We have a lot to do that. We don't have a lot of multi-year contracts, so to speak, like you were talking about earlier. But that's kind of the same thing. You get this idea. We have another one that sent us an email the other day and said, have 24 communities I want you to get ready to do in the spring, like in April. So a lot of times we don't even quote them anymore.
How are you making contact with those decision makers? Let's say I got one for community.
Those are property managers.
Oh, the property
Yeah,
manager.
they contact us.
Okay.
If we don't hear from them, we contact them. That's the difference on apartments and condos. Apartments are, we don't do many apartments because it is a hassle. Condos, it's not such a hassle because the owners live there. It's their place. With apartments, so many of them now are owned by these asset management companies. And I've actually had them tell me, we just assumed the place burned down. We'd make more money. And that's what we're all about. So it's really hard to work with apartments and they want you to give them bottom dollar on everything you do. So we do some apartments, but that's,
We focus on still on patient and
great.
So, yeah, apartments I used to not get, like, priced some up recently, a higher pricing, you're gonna, have it through the thing. So I don't know if there's depends on the management company.
Yeah, I think
Some of them are, I mean, these are nicer places, but there's a lot of them don't want to spend any.
yeah, some of them, like the ones we were talking about, what we call Pigeon Forge, that's a nice community. I mean, and I expect it.
Fair apartment.
They're apartments, but I expect it's $2,000 a month or more to rent a spot. And so they have money to do things with it. But we've had others that last year, especially during the pandemic, that canceled because they had people that were given the permission not to pay rent. And so they bought TVs instead. And they had the apartment community there, the asset management company didn't have the money to pay clean. So that's changing. And I think there are fewer people too that want to hassle with it. You know, the apartments are.
The nice thing about apartments though over condos, the nice thing about condos is condos are the people live there, and so it's their home, it's where they live, it's what they like. The nice thing about apartments are they're managed by the management company, so if you do need to get inside, they have the ability, because they have a master key, they can get you into the building. One of the companies that we do apartments for, there are taller, so we have like 4 or 5 that we do for them, that they are 4-story buildings. We can reach up to the 3rd story. We can't reach the 4th. So the 4th is interior cleans. So basically we schedule and say, we're gonna do the exterior on one day, we're gonna do the interior on the other day. That way they can let the occupants know they're gonna be in their unit. They have somebody with us. We always, whenever doing interior cleanings, we typically we say one of 2 things. You have to have somebody with us 100% of the time, or we send 2 people. Because we never want to be in a home by ourselves, because we've been accused of lifting things that we haven't lifted. So it's just as a safety precaution. And a lot of times with the interior cleans, it goes faster if they have 2 anyway. That is one nice thing about apartments, they can get you in when you need to get in. And if your hose gets stuck, you can get back on.
On those 4th floor apartments or that you can't reach, you do interior, what keeps you from getting, I'm assuming you're doing it with vac and the brush? The vac?
We do both.
How easy to use the Y connector and then just go through with the dryer blowing? Are you going outward or in?
Yes.
If you clean up, unless you know exactly how long that vent is, you go out that vent.
Well,
Or you're not coming back.
yeah, you see that tallest compressor over there.
The one that's sitting over there that has the white hose sitting on top of it. That's an electric compressor.
So I went to Eaton Compressor and said, this is what I need. And I don't know how to build it, but you tell me. I need a compressor that does what those outside you saw, what they do, but I need it to be electric so we can run it inside and then be halfway quiet.
So it runs off a 220, so it's set up so we can plug it into the outlet for the dryer.
And you can buy this double connection, so you can plug it in either a 3-prong or a 4-prong. And it's got a 50-foot cord.
Which one is it?
The one with the white hose sitting on the top of it.
Yeah, we rigged it up so we could get it in and out of the building, run up on an elevator, whatever. And
And is that inside the person's home or in the hallway?
you have to try to put it in the hallway, and then you can do multiple units. Because you can drag the hose in. And yeah, you would use a Y adapter, run the hook, the cleaning hose through that adapter and through the vent. Now, that works for the most part. One of the problems we've had with it is whenever, if you have to go, like, from the vent is down here low, and you have to go up 8 or 9 or 10 feet and then out, sometimes we're having a terrible time making that turn with the hose. They're like pushing a rope uphill. You know? So we've experimented with different things, and now one of the things we're trying is just use the regular blue hose with a forward blowing spinner, especially if it's got a no pass vent cover, because it blows the vent, so we don't really use that. You can just blow the air, just like you're doing whenever you're using a reverse spinner from the outside. That makes sense?
How does that travel the hose up? Because the way the spinner is now, it actually pulls the hose in.
Right, you have to push it.
But if you're going up.
Yeah, it's really hard.
And some of them are a little
David,
different.
did you ever get yours operational? Okay, did you run it the same?
He's an expert on interior.
It would be a stretch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we got it for fine. But we didn't use the line. Guys didn't like using the line. They just take the HEPA back and they actually put a little handle on it, so because they got tired. And so they put a handle on it, just hold that right up next to the blower motor.
So, yeah, it is with a vac, so you're creating your own airflow with the hose. Otherwise, you could just a vac on there and it sucks the vent cover shut on the outside.
Right.
So if you run it up there with a reverse spinner, in this case, it's on the back, it cuts the lint loose and blows it back. Blows it out, so you're supplying your own air supply when the vent check cover is sucked shut.
So, no, so you're saying that using the reverse spinner with the HEPA vac, it doesn't matter whether the vent cover then gets closed.
Right. And you can usually get it pretty
And
much
how do
clear
they
to the
know
vent.
when they get to the end?
Well,
Sound.
sound, also, you know about how long it is.
Because there again, you get outside the vent.
Your call.
Yeah, we try to be cautious. We probably don't get all. I don't know. Don't do too many stories. That thing goes out there.
Yeah.
You're
You know, one of the things,
You cut the line.
one of the things we've kind of learned, to tell people is, one of the things we've learned to tell people is whenever they have these difficult situations is, I had a problem with this long time. I didn't create that situation. So the builder or the designer did that. You got a problem. This is the best we can do. And basically, there's nobody else around who wants to do it.
One of the nice things about the apartments that we're doing, that we do we do the first 3. So we know they're all built basically the same. So we know the first 3 we've gone the opposite direction. So we know how far we've gone. We know we're just working the opposite way out on the other ones. And that is one thing that he likes to believe, that there is no dryer vent that cannot be cleaned, and that is true. Except for the fact that there are some places now that they've creatively built that I'm not sure what in the world they were thinking. Obviously, the people who built them were thinking, oh, look how cool this place looks, because we have a couple that we've looked at that they have interior courtyards that are just beautiful, but you can't get a ladder into the courtyard and you can't get a lift in there either.
But it's 4 stories tall.
And it's 4 stories tall. So, you know,
Interior.
Yeah, the interior is the only way you can do it. So or they build things on the bottom, you can't even set up ladders because they've got all kinds of ornate, shrubbery, and they've done all kinds of crazy stuff where it's not a swimming pool, fountains, whatever. And we're like, well, the only choice is interior cleans because this is,
For interior, when you're doing that, how do you price that? What do you normally charge for an interior? Say it's the 20-foot one like you're talking about.
Generally, I just make one price fit on.
if we're doing interior and exterior. I don't know, how do you price?
Well, we haven't done both. I use the $1,000 day rule, depending on how, like, if there's only 20, they're gonna be more expensive than just wood. Because you really can't schedule that for another job, because you don't know. 20 can still take all day.
Yeah.
Crazy.
One person.
Doing the interior. Wow.
Right.
Because you gotta disconnect.
That's hard work, moving things around.
A lot of our, in fact, every interior job we've done has been in a pretty big building, and they all had booster fans. And actually, the booster fan makes it pretty easy. You just take the thing, but bolts off the
Okay,
booster fan.
Do those have front lines?
Yes. No, they don't. And so we just clean to the outside and then we clean back to the dryer,
We
and
have
it's
not
pretty quick.
seen one with a fan yet. I don't know if it's.
The other thing about
We've had people
is-
ask for them and we talked them out of it, but we haven't.
Almost all of these have secondary lift track traps, and the vents are quite clean. I think that they need to be cleaned for insurance purposes, but maybe in a whole building, you find 5 that really, a lot of them comes out, and the rest of them are disgusting.
As far as pricing goes, we're jumping around all over the place, but. As far as pricing goes, like you talked about the interior and exterior, this is kind of one thing we've tried to figure out with all of this. It's really hard in some of these communities, you're gonna have some that it's always the same. And then you're gonna have some that are obviously like today, some of them are sidewalls, some of them are roof vents. Our rule is, especially with property managers, when you're dealing with HOAs and properties, is it's one price for the whole community. So if you're thinking, this one would be this much, and this one would be this much, then you average in the middle and you apply across the whole board. Because property managers don't wanna have to go,
Figure it out.
oh, I gotta assess this person this much, this person this much. So it's one price that you have to kind of figure out, what do you wanna make out of the whole job, or what are you gonna be able to do in a day?
Have you had buildings where you have to do all interior? So in that case, what do you charge if it's all, that's one of the options?
Yes, we did this building that's downtown in the last couple of weeks, called the Ascent. It sits along the river, and it actually is built up and it goes in a swooping manner all the way to the top. Most of the condos are $1 million. They overlook the river. And so we charge for interior pricing if we can go do,
X number,
in a day.
we charge, we have a scale, we do them all, it's like $100 a piece. If we do only 25, it's maybe $120. And so we have, based on, we have like Park Place, there's a building downtown that was rehabbed 15 years ago. It's really an ugly building, it's a square building. You wouldn't know that it has $2, $3, $4 million condos in it.
The president of P&G.
Yeah, bigwigs live there, but like one floor is a penthouse, but that 6 or 8 floors. And so I got a deal with them a few years ago where we developed a relationship with the property manager and the maintenance guy. So we go in there and we give them a special price. The special price is still $149 for an interior cleaning, and pretty much regular price for everything else, but no service fee.
And they all have booster fans.
They all have booster fans. We bill the homeowner association. They pay us. I mean, we can send them an email, we'll get a check tomorrow. They really pay well.
And it averages about $425 a
That
unit.
job. So we just got that. We usually do it every other year. I don't think we did it this past year, and they've already,
How do you get up to 425?
They do the cleaning of the vent, they do the booster fan, they clean the machine, they do the lint tray cleaning, so
sometimes you have to replace the transition.
they just build the ticket. So in those jobs, we usually have the individual techs do those because they're more interior type normal jobs.
So we'll do all 112 of them.
How do you schedule to get into everybody's place?
Well, because it is high rent, we schedule it through the property manager or the maintenance guy. And so we just tell him how many we can do in a day, that might be 5. And so he'll set that up on a certain floor with certain people. They know we're coming that day. And he escorts us around, opens the door for us. And at one time, it was so high rent that they didn't want to see us worker bees in there. So we had to go at 9 o'clock in the morning. We had to be out there by like 3:30 in the evening because they didn't want to see us. Which is kind of pathetic, really, but it is what it is.
They didn't want to.
For 400, I think
They're paying $400.
we were $400 some a unit, so we didn't care. It made a short day and a good day. So,
And we work it out with them. They give us, we try to ask them to assign, to schedule units on the same floor if they can, so the guys aren't dragging their stuff all over the place. And they give us a storage closet in the building so that everything is there locked up and the guys don't have to drag their stuff in and out of the building every day. So we schedule it, and so we'll schedule somebody down there like a whole week, and that's just where they go every day, and they'll do what they tell them to do, and just go through and do it.
How many units is that?
usually 4 or 5.
4 or 5.
And I know we touched on it earlier when outside, but when you're pricing the multi-units, you said something about you don't, like you're doing that $30 per event. You don't include the price of like if you have to have a lift or the other equipment. And then you put in the contract that they pay for that.
At the end of the contract, we have that proposal.
No.
On our proposal, one of the line items on the last page says that if we need a lift or any kind of equipment like that, that's extra, they will pay for it. I just passed that through to them, whatever.
Mhm.
I used to add it into the job, but sometimes when you do that, you say it's gonna be $30, but now I'm gonna have this lift in, that makes it 55.
Yeah.
I said, whoa, wait a minute, we can't do that. But if you say it's $30 to clean the vent, and then you just pay for the lift, whatever that is, that seems to like it.
We're just gonna charge you what they charge.
And we make the arrangements for the lift, so,
And we pay for it.
and we pay for it. So we pay for it, pass it through, but when you do that, because we have to invoice it through QuickBooks to collect the money, you just let them know in your royalty report that it's a pass-through expense, and you'll pay for it on the lift.
You don't pay.
No, because that's the equipment that you have to run, it's not, you're not making money, you're just
But there are different things you can do, which we do some with some of the bigger communities, like the one we're gonna work on, we've already done the cleanings on, but now they want to put that vent covers. They said, you can do it anytime you want to, but the painters are here in the month of November, and you can use their lift when they're not using it. So now see, we go to Birds Fun Stone, that cost us anything, didn't cost them any money, because the painters aren't there every day, but they leave the lift there. So they rented it for a week instead of a day, or 2 weeks, or a month, or whatever. You get a better rate.
So you generally let them know that it's the cost and then the cost for the lift is just a line item on the invoice and they pay.
And we pretty well know anymore what a lift costs. I don't know if who you work with in your area, but I know one of the PTN companies, I think, is Sunbelt. And they have, here anyway, they have a pretty good guy that will go to the property for you and tell you what you need and tell you about what the cost is gonna be. And that's really helpful. Yeah, we
Did it vary that you guys, like, what you find in terms of the rate through certain companies, or is it kind of between that 1,500 a week?
probably, it's about the same. Some have different equipment,
Yeah.
you know. Like, not everybody has a 60-foot ladder.
Oh, no. I didn't know it existed.
You know,
that one. That's 30.
It's a
That's
32.
40.
that's the 40.
The 40's down.
The 40's down
Oh,
here,
yeah, no, that's 30.
and yes, there is a 60-foot left.
And so it's,
What's going on with 50 foot
it's
ladder?
3 20-foot pieces that, you know, they extend.
What was 6
How do you get that up?
Not you.
Well, we tell the next, that's what the job is.
Yeah.
How do you get it
So
up?
it doesn't sway or anything out, because I just did not see that before. It's like, once you get it up there.
It's gotta be out of here.
It's hard to
Set
do.
up.
Yeah, it's,
If you're not afraid of heights, I mean, I don't mind climbing. Not a flight, it stays alive. I did one time. It doesn't bother me. But we have the guys that would probably grow up on the first. 60-foot ladder is $45 a day to rent. You can buy it. Here it is. $195 for the week.
That's a good thing.
Even the city's got free.
What did it get? Just on top of the bed.
How we carry it on a big room. So there's 320 foot, 320 foot ladders.
Oh, okay, okay,
Telescopes.
okay. So three,
Heavy.
yeah.
So the next sheet, the second one we're gonna talk about is estimating the job. It's 3.2. Basically, we kind of talked a little bit about that, but if you go back in the third section, you find 4 pages in, there's pictures, they're colored pictures. And we're gonna use these as examples to kind of give you an idea of how everybody kind of said, can you walk the community and tell us? It's in the third section in the back. So go back past the second tab that you have in the back, and there are these pictures that look like this, they're colored. So these are actually communities that we have cleaned. The first community is Nantucket. Nantucket requires a 40-foot ladder. Now, because of the vents that are on the roof, and the roofs are very steep. So the arrows show you where the vents are. So first pretty easy, second pretty bad, fourth floor is pretty scary. Or the last top floor is pretty scary, third floor. So basically, this requires a 40-foot ladder, and if you notice, the landscaping is kind of a disaster below it. They've got fences and bushes and everything else. So this is one of the things we talked about where you calculate the total cost based on spread it across evenly among it. So with Nantucket, I would just.
Oh, that one. We've done that a few times. We used to do them all for about $30 a piece. But because of that third floor, and the top floor having been on the roof and that 40-foot ladder to get up there, the roof is steep. So a third of the vents are up there. And the longer we go, the fewer people we have eager to get on the 40-foot ladder on the roof. I raised the price on it. So I think I quoted that this year like $69 or something like that. And just so you know, we didn't get it. Because they're on this, they got this vision that it'll be $30. But what we're finding is we just wait a while and they'll call back because they cannot find anybody in this area that will climb a ladder to get on the roof.
Because we drove over there the other day and there's one hanging out. So they haven't gotten anybody.
So I have a hard time with that because I want to do all the jobs we can. I don't want to pass any up. I don't want to be outbid by anybody. And so I'm having to learn to be patient. My thinking has always been since day one, we might not have any jobs tomorrow. I don't know if any of you ever think about that. I'm always afraid tomorrow is going to come and I'm not going to have anything to do. It's never been that way in 15 years, but I still can't get that out of my head. So this year I did quote that high, and I told him the going price to do those roof vents is probably $245. And so he wanted us to come to him one at a time. That's what we said. But I haven't heard back from him, so I'm assuming they're not going to do it. But I just kind of try to figure out what it's going to take.
The second community is 20 Mile Way. This is the condo that all of our boys love. When you get on the roof, there's 4 roof vents. You just get on there, you can walk right across, do all 4, come on, So they can do a community like that in about 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
How many vents in total? How many buildings is that?
There's
I
usually,
think there's 90 units.
90 units in about 2 hours.
This is what I always tell people about when I first started. They were having a problem with this community. They called me and wanted me to come and check it out. The only problem was that they had screens in every vent.
Nobody ever went up.
And there was never any briar lamp, any of the vents except for the screen. So I told them, because I'm like some of you probably, when I started, I didn't know where the next job was coming from. So I told them I'd clean out, take the vents out of each one of them, screens out for $10 a piece. So that was $10 times 9 events, $900. I made a couple hours. I thought I was a millionaire. Because I wasn't finding jobs that were that easy to do. But I get up on the roof one time, pull out 4 screens and get down with the ladder. It was easy. And that's all they've ever needed really since then, because it goes from the roof straight down to 18 feet.
So it doesn't really need cleaning for it.
Those are pretty straight.
And we do several communities like that, similar.
A lot of the communities that look like that are, one story, so a lot of people live in their homes. They're retired people and they like to have them clean. It's just kind of a peace of mind. And so, you know, it's an easy one for us to do and make good relationships with people. The next community is Leaning Oakwood Lakes. This is the community that I talked about that I made best friends with the lady on the board. This community has all different stuff. These bins are all over the place. If you look, some of them are in the front, up and high and low. Some of them are in the back along the lake. The ones along the back along the lake, they always have birds in them. Constantly have birds in them. So this is the community we convinced they needed to put no pest fence covers up without a doubt. And then they had a third style building. So they range all over the place, and this is the one that started doing signups, and now they do the whole thing. And in this community, because we know it, one of the things you'll probably find out, what we found out is here, there are different styles of condos, and there are different builders. Trees builds condos, and who else? John Henry and all these different builders. Once our boys know the community, like, a lot of times we can tell them, okay, you're gonna go to such and such, and this is what it is. Okay, well, which builder is it? We can tell them like, okay, and before they even get there, they can, in their mind, know exactly about where all the gardens are gonna be, because it's kind of a pattern. And so this community, this Leaning Oakwood Lakes community, which we're very familiar with because we've done it for years, matched almost the community that had 600 minutes in. So when they got down to do Terra, we thought it was gonna take, we allowed 4 days because we'd never done it before. So we were like, it's 600 vents, it's gonna take us 4 days.
How many people?
They had 4 workers. They did it in 2.5. 2.5 days. They did it.
How many?
You
600.
get 2 compressors and 4 lines, or
No, they ran 2 lines,
2 lines? 2 compressors, 2 lines.
4
workers,
2 on each one.
just like the
Just like
team
you
you saw today. Yeah. Because they're familiar with the buildings, so they knew what they were. So in our minds, we were thinking, well, 600, we never really done them. It's pretty dirty. They went down there and they're like, oh, they're here. Like they knew the whole pattern and they went through it. So pattern helps, and you'll find that when you do a lot of condos, that's what works.
But it's 4 or 5 builders who have built all these condos, apartment communities, and they're all the same.
So do you prefer to use, like, so are you recommending them having, say, 4 people, 2 compressors, as opposed to just the 1 compressor and just kind of spreading it out longer, or is it just?
I think so. I mean, when you get to a volume of vents to do, I think that's better. We got the 2 compressed 2 bullets because we thought we'd send them in different directions. But now we've learned that it's better just to go in 2 directions in the same community and wipe it out and done with it. It's just your personal preference.
And the boys do have, I mean, the boys will say they have a preference. Some of them will say they like the flatbed, some of them will say they like the bullet. Part of it depends on the community. You know, Cincinnati is the city built on 7 hills. There are some communities you do not want a bullet in because it will be far away before you ever catch it. And it also depends on how many times you have to climb a ladder. Now, the kid who's super skinny, who was on the top of the roof, that's my son. He'll be 19 next week. He says that he prefers the flat trailer because he's the one that's doing all the climbing on the ladder, and it makes him much more exhausted to have to push the bullet and then climb the ladders.
Sure.
It's a lot more work than just taking the trailer and pulling it down the street and then running the lines and going. He can just, because they have, the flatbed trailer can run 2 hoses. So it can still run 2. So in a community like the one they did today, they could still drop 2 hoses and go on opposite sides of the street and then move on down the street together. The only thing that causes a problem is if you've got 2 that are faster than the other 2 and the other 2 are waiting because, you know, they're not quite as fast.
That's when I get paid by that.
Yeah, so, you know, they know kind of the whole routine, but the bullets are nice. They're nice for places where you can't block a street. You can put it on the sidewalk. They're nice for flat communities. They're nice when you can just go in a circle and then go pick it up. But it does take more energy to push it because it is pretty heavy. So that's another thing to consider with that. The Boulevard, this is the one that we talked about. That we did Pigeon Forge. This shows, this is the one we were contracted to do all the 4-inch and 6-inch vent covers. And basically we had sort of enlist having all of some of the individual techs help with the vent covers on this project because we do have a couple guys that can put up a lot. And then this is the lift that we use and we did pass the cost to them. So they paid for that. Rolling Meadows is the next one. Now, Rolling Meadows is another one that we like to do.
These are quick question. How many units were Boulevard?
300.
300?
Rolling Meadows is the next one. That we like this type of unit. It's an older style unit. Actually, what these are is these are condos that were built as apartments. That someone got a great idea and said they'd sell them to people as condos, so they're really not that big, but all the vents are on the side. So they're 6. So they're in rows straight up the side of the building. So basically they set up the ladder, go up, 1, 2, 3, go down, 1, 2, 3, and the bench. So, and in this picture, you'll see the air conditioner units are always underneath there. It's always a good idea to put a tarp over the air conditioner units because that's one thing people don't like. You know, they'll say one, like I said before, don't stand on the AC unit to clean it because we had some people who did try to do that. And also make sure that you cover it up because we have people calling us saying that we got lint in their air conditioner compressor and we need to pay the bill to have it. That's why you. Yeah.
Even though the lift's coming out anyway when they come start.
Exactly.
Blame it on you.
The next page is Anderson Ridge. You can see that this building is 3 stories, and this is how we get a lot done. As you can see, there's a tech that's on the top of the building and one that's on the side. So in this case, what they're doing is they're accomplishing getting everything done at once. One's going across the roof, doing all the roof vents. The other one's on the front, doing all the front vents.
And in that case, they had more than 2 people.
And they're passing a single line or they're
There's 2 lines.
There's 2 lines.
But it was on the flatbed trailer.
So the flatbed was split. One was on the lower, one was on the upper.
So that big one, that big, you can split that.
And this person standing in the picture is this guy right here because he still does work on those 2 times in the evening.
He's very worthless.
Loveland Station, these vents are located above businesses. This is where, as you can see, the bullet is in this picture. This is where I was talking about. This is one of the 4-story apartments that we were talking about that we do. They have businesses that are on the lower end. What you can't see in this picture is this is on a street corner. So there's traffic in the street corner. So the bullet is perfect to be able to put on the sidewalk right there to be able to put the ladder up and clean the vents up the side of the building. Flatbed wouldn't really work.
And the street is a state highway, so there's not kind of, you couldn't even really do it with the lift.
The next picture is Gateway. Now, and this, you'll see the vents are way up there. This is one of the other things you have to think about and paying attention to what is around where you need to clean. In this case, we had to make sure that they moved the cars. They could not be there for us to be able to clean. So sometimes you have to coordinate and tell them they gotta move the cars so that you can actually reach the vents. And this last one on the bottom is Delbrook. And this is a little forewarning with doing interior cleans. If you're ever doing an interior clean, be very careful that you don't put a blower on it and blow it out and blow the vent cover off the side of the building so that it comes all the way down to the ground.
Hit somebody in the head.
Because the 2 arrows in the top are where their vent covers is.
So what do you do?
That's why we're gonna have to get a 60-foot ladder.
Oh.
It's only about, I think we measure 11 feet from the back of the building to the cliff.
Oh.
And I mean, it's not just 10 or 15 feet, it's down, it's down hundreds of feet. And so you can't get a lift in there because there's not room.
Right.
So we're down, I've tried 2 different attempts to use a lift and we aborted both of those deals. So.
And
we're
the
down
way the
to the
building
60-foot ladder.
Yeah, the way the building is around the corner of the building, there's not enough, you could actually get a lift in parallel to the building, but there's not enough room space to get into the, to actually get back there. So this is where the 60-foot ladder is gonna have to come into play, where we have to put on, and this is, we're eating this, I mean, this is on us. We blew it off, it's our rock.
So we don't really want to do that on a 6 or 7 or an 8-story building. You know what I mean? We don't-
So what did you say to avoid that? It's not.
Don't put a blower on it and blow out.
Or don't run your brush through too far.
Yeah.
That can happen so easy. So it's been a long time ago. We had a guy working there. He was in the Navy and he climbed towers when he was in the Navy. So we did have a 6-story. In fact, it's that high rent place I was telling you about. And he needed to put up a new main cover. And so over the weekend, he built a platform that was about this wide. And it was like 10 or 12 feet long. And we didn't know about this till afterwards. And his wife got killed since he didn't die. So he put this flat because the dryer vent was right up here. Here's the window, the dryer vent's right up here inside the building. So he ran this platform out the window.
Now, he weighed probably about 140 pounds, maybe.
So yeah, ran the platform out there and he had one of our other techs go with him, set a ladder up. They put the inside of the platform on the top of the ladder and Bob sat on the and he walked out there and changed that window. 6 stories up.
Now, we don't prove it.
We're just glad Bushy wasn't around. That would have probably been a $10,000 fine at least.
So he's gonna know, he didn't tell you.
No, he got that.
Yeah.
That's why I did it. He said, yeah, Susan about killed me. But you got it done. So we don't recommend it. But you get this point where you got to do stuff like that because there isn't any other way. And like this building doesn't have any of those hooks on the roof where you can repel.
Right, so the vents on the top, they're not, that's not like attic space inside there, that's actually a condo.
Yeah.
Wow.
I do that. So I guess the other option, if you didn't do that, you'd have to repel. So why, how are the windows cleaner? How are they getting their windows clean?
Maybe
They're probably not.
maybe when it's cold in, you know, some of those. are
Okay, yeah, yeah.
I don't know. We can't even make the hang of it. What's that?
Have you ever used Scotland?
No, we have.
Expected, I didn't know if there's a.
Yeah,
You got it.
definitely license for it,
We just hired Spider-Man.
too. So you're 60 foot ladder, you got to move now. You have to go out.
Yeah, bro.
Less than 15.
It's the next one.
Yeah.
Anybody can find it.
Triangle. Pretty small.
All right, well, just to give you that example, I was telling somebody else in there a while ago, I called the Sunbelt guy, asked him, so you have 60-foot ladder? He said, well, we don't have one here. I think we got one in Indianapolis. If you want to go get it, you know, or we'll have it shipped over here, that'll cost you. And he said, you're gonna use 60-foot ladder? I said, well, that's our problem. And he said, you couldn't get my ass on a 60-foot ladder. And that's the Sunbelt.
James has
Huh?
one. James got it.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he carried it.
Oh, he probably did.
James.
Oh, he.
Just every other 50 more. Yeah, I know.
They don't use, they use 30 hours.
Yeah.
40 is
Yeah, yeah.
one guy.
We kind of talked a little bit about scheduling and how we do that. We kind of talked about, yeah. We talked about, you know, labor and what we use. They give you an example in here of the things you might want to buy. You know, those are suggestions, not, you know, hard and fast rules, whatever you think you should do. And then it talks about invoicing and quality control and all that kind of stuff. The biggest thing, one of the biggest things too, is always to clean up and make sure you do a good job of cleaning up. And one of our big selling points is, you know, our goal is, because we'll actually have people call us who will say, you didn't clean our bins today. And we're like, yeah, we did. No, you didn't. And, you know, they went to work. Like, yes, we did. And no, you didn't. And I said, yeah, we did, because we don't leave a mess behind. So there's no lint when they come home. You know, we don't try to leave tracks that we were there. So,
The bad form.
yeah, we can leave lint for them at their door. If they, I mean, I can, you know, oh, I'll come back and show you what we got out of it. But that's one of the things is, you know, always doing a good job and cleaning up and all that kind of information. But one of the things that we're gonna go over, and I think we'll take a break and then we'll go over this after that. Next thing we're gonna go over is what we do when we invoice and follow up and how we give them their reports and all that type of stuff. I know that's one of the things that you have questions about. But we'll start again at 2. No, that's 2. So you can get some snacks, go to the restroom, get a drink, make phone calls, go outside and walk in the rain.
So he can look at the schedule and see where the scene is. So we were. Yeah. And so. Yeah, it's. One person. The way that we used to do that. So the way that we used to do that. Before.
So you build a whole relationship building. And then get back there.
So.
Oh, really? Oh, it was actually 45 minutes up. Okay. Stay down. Yeah, that's a pretty popular.
So. Yeah. And if I had.
A lot of places. Okay. That's what I want. Yeah.
We have a boss. We have the county.
Yeah. And actually, great.
Oh, man. Who was the first time? She.
And I'm gonna tell you something. Then I would stay. I'd stay down at the lot. Yeah. Then they get married. Like, come on, man. That's weird. Yeah. They would block me. Yeah. Yeah, they don't care. Well, I think down there, like, we. It's hilarious now, like, especially with, like, how things work now, like, business travel. Right. So, like, I mean, I started, so I only worked there for a year. I was at the, joined, during COVID, so I saw real life pictures. Like I saw thumbnail title, this guy. Everything was operating. I worked there for a year without a hitch. Like, get all my work, everything got approved, like all that kind of stuff, right? And you're gonna tell me that, like, when COVID's over, they're gonna start talking back on planes.
Yeah.
My dad's still working. So very platform that they were helping to work on the broker dealer side. And he was flying, basically rolled it out for 3 days. We were living in Charlotte, in and out of Chicago. Like, they fly out on Monday morning, fly down Chicago, it's like 4 months, London for 3 or 4 months, and then California for 3 or 4 months. And it's like so for probably about a year and a half, he was in and out of those 3 cities every week. It's like, because he's like, and now it's like, it's funny now, I work with people like my team, like, I'm gonna be on my team, California, Chicago, New York City. My boss is in New York City, London. It's like, it just doesn't matter. Get your job done. Everything gets done. It actually works a little better because, like, you can get your 3-hour head start on people in California. So by the time, like, they're asking questions on what you're doing, you had your work, you log off, they can do their independent work. Right. Yeah, they're figuring out how to make it work. It's easier because you don't have to work with questions. Like how things kind of shifted with all all the people brought in. Yeah. So the work seems like a lot of teamwork, but a lot of relationships. It's kind of like it's the way they call the way they talk that someone will say, well, I'm fired people. Yeah. Like, what? Yeah, no, now they're accepting more than that for like, so like, it's like, I think it's a problem. And it's, you know, like, I see a lot of things solve software versus platform, you know, require pay. They come solve their system. Yeah. Problem, but like they're actually starting to like consolidate some of those platforms. So if like people come in, it's not like, oh, I'm on ease. So I don't Yeah, we do it this way, you go that way. you go this way. Yeah, exactly. So they're actually like fixing some of that. It's nice, but like, it's just like undertaking you're doing this like. I was in audio. Oh, you were? Okay. Yeah. At least I feel it. Yeah. All the audio. Yeah, just controls are completely. Yeah, for the most regulated industry, you know, like this. Yeah, it's nothing better than putting together like, since I was new to this thing, I did a lot of active preparation. Like, you know, putting together a report that has to go through.
What I was used to.
By the second, third approval, like, you send it over in 5 minutes, you get an email back saying, not even like, I approved, it's good, no period, no nothing. It's just like, that's my boss, and the next guy just says, fire away.
Everyone assumes the person below you did it.
Yeah, fire away.
Seems to go the other way.
Really?
Because when I see it, they thought you had to use on every minute of the quarter to do it again.
Yeah.
So I got it, yeah, mine was done like 3 weeks ahead of time.
Yeah.
It's still a big deal. My boss is talking about every day. And we're going over the report, and she's picking on words, you know, in, on, this, there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are we talking about the point?
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
like, the end of the quarter, when it was good, going around.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I'll give my boss, credit for that. It's right, like, these guys sit in the same, like, so basically what we do, I would give a presentation to my immediate boss on what I did. Like, here's, like, the report. And my boss's boss would just call in on that same thing and listen through it. I would get my boss's notes, and by the time I got to the other guy, I said, okay, well, I've already heard the gist of it. Yeah, right. And now I'm getting a quick scan, that, like, from a presentation. No, those are the numbers. I'm like, yeah. The whole point's right, everything's right. Yeah, and then he's like, all right, I don't see layering, like, facial, issues. You know, like, so it's funny, 'cause it's like, damn, if you don't, like, I'm sitting here criticizing, saying, like, oh, you sent me one month back, but it's like, the other side, like, it's, yeah, right, well, I don't want that either. So, yeah, there you go. Yeah, sure. All ways. My boss, she made it like another 6 months before they called on her. Yeah. So she fired me and the guy above me. Yeah. He fired both of them, fixed the problem. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. That was well, now we're both. But I was just different. Or very easy to tell what it is right. Yeah, you still export it. You said you all day. Yeah, all day. What's nice now is that, you know, I really admire that. Everything gets done. Like, the work. Middle of the day, all the guys are out on top. Outside, like, the guy does another job, you know, don't, hey, how do you want this or like, you and then. Like, quality of life. Yes, like, quality of life.
It's like a little wonderful.
Yeah, because that, yeah, we actually, we just started that.
Be careful like today. If you're out there, you have to build behind. You have to be careful with the field.
Now, so this manual, before I started, well, so I love all the extra stuff that they put in here, like their promotional materials and examples. For this manual, Dave and I, before I left my job, we went through that. Basically, what I would do is I would read through sections of it at a time, take my own notes, and then him and I would debrief on it. So I've got like.
So you pretty much already have this.
Yeah. So this exact manual I already have.
Okay.
And my entire thing's all marked up, notes highlighted. So I've been through that whole manual.
Yeah.
So it's a really good refresher, obviously.
Fucking all
The new stuff. Like, this is all examples. Like I was reading about this earlier. It's literally just like invoices, emails. Like, that's really nice. Like super valuable. But yeah, the manual itself I've been through, so I wasn't taking much notes on that section. But you know, I got notes on my phone too that I've been from time to time. But not as heavy. For presidential work, I went through our whole. I did 6 weeks for annual tech. Right. Yeah. But no, yeah, like we have our own like trainer in house. That means like to start tech training. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so we don't know like this is the first one we really done. It's like that. I mean, it's very valuable. You know, some of the stuff that I check on, yes. like concept of charging. It's like, you charge on a day, you charge on a work, like, do you try, like, it's like, I did a job that I just did 46 minutes. Where do they come out? Like, how like, one thing. Well, every job. That's why I asked, like, is it a fixed feel or it's very, like, you kind of got to develop your own point, right? You know, so I try not to keep a lot of details on that. Meaning, right? How to get that handle, you know, what are the next steps? The huge thing that I look at here, so I'm comfortable with it's specifically audit, so documented. I'd be like, very nice to see like examples of how we document, you know, they're documenting issues that they find, where they clean the route, they clean all that kind of stuff. Like, I think that's super cool. That's why it's good to have a record one, so when you go back, you know where everything is, you know what the problems are, and then like apply. Yeah, so I don't know. I think not like yeah, I can do the work, but I need to pay me for it. So you know, so I like it. It's just it's cool that like I come up with well, usually, but Megan and I, so commercial, Megan and I put together a plan. And I looked at what it is already. Like, I sent it to Megan. Let's modernize it. Yes. You know, modern. Maybe you want that. Yeah, but like, you know, but whatever's previous to that on it, outside of that, whatever it is, the original thought, you know what I mean? Like, no one needs to like, so that utilizing everyone else, seeing stuff like this. Like some of these emails, like specifically, really when I read through that, like, I'll probably type that out and save that. Use that. Yeah. Actually, I have a template that for the email. I've got the invoice. I've got for invoice template. Yeah, like if you've got an email template, yeah. Oh yeah, I love that.
So then you're not
Turn up for a real.
Yeah.
Just text it to
Like, very hard, it's like $25 involved.
And these DEAs buying more. Still have. You probably heard that like more. What's that? Oh, that he's not. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't hear you say it. Fine. I said under my breath. I was like. At least it's not the. At least it's not the. Yeah. Drop the weight on it. I was like, that'll do it. Can't even blame like hard and heavy.
All right, that's wrong.
I can't ask that. Man, last week was slow. Like I even had a day that we couldn't take any tech. Really, nobody went out, and now I'm working for more than a week. Wow.
Yeah.
And I have to go out for those days.
One of the things we were talking about, this is a little example when I talked about, Scott reminded me about this. One of the things I talked about how it's always good to make sure to clean up really well. And no evidence that you were there. In one community, we were cleaning up, we were replacing all the vent covers. And that becomes one of those things that, that's a really great job if you can replace all the vent covers. But there is a lot more evidence. And when it rains, Lint will dissipate and disappear and it'll go away, but vent covers won't. And so our guys changed the vent covers and these people no longer work for us, but they didn't clean up their vent covers. And when the lawn crew came, they just mowed over. So we had a phone call about all this busted up plastic that was all over the yard.
Obviously, we hadn't been there to inspect it.
So one of the things that we do in communities where it's really big and it is a big project, we usually do a quality control walkthrough after we're done to make sure everything's cleaned up. And that kind of runs in tandem with doing assessments of communities, because we'll get a list and we'll go out and we'll assess, figure out what it's going to take to do that. And we'll swing by and do quality control on another one, see what it looks like to make sure everything's cleaned up and it's done and there aren't vent covers chewed up and gone or lint laying around. And then we can kind of talk to the boys about what they need to do better. So that is a big deal. So you don't want to make more work for yourself, which is what we always tell them.
When you do the interior maintenance, do you have like an electric river blower or you the interior on the? You use the back?
At the back.
With a Y adapter. So stick
Cover.
one in, get the Y into the vent, and you've got back on one side, you run your brakes through the other. So it sucks and it cuts.
But you use the compressor inside as well. What'll make you determine whether you use the,
We don't use the compressor inside on a typical individual clean.
no, on
I thought it was
the,
the-
If we do a big community, we would probably use it, but otherwise we use it back. That depends. What works best. They both do about the same kind of job. When we first got a compressor, we had some people come and wanted to see what the difference was in the quality of the work. The compressor versus brushing it. So we ran the compressor, then we brushed it, and we got nothing. So it was really no big deal. The main difference is if you got a claw, and sometimes you can't. It's a real, how lint will get wet, then it dries, and gets hard, like paper mache. And you can't bust through that. Yeah.
We're gonna go through the information in the back section of the book now. So the last tab that you have in the back, after the photographs that we went over. The first part is the numbers we talked about. The next one is the HOA pitch. Like I said, it's what Ed does, and he said when he goes and talks to people. And the next one were the communities where we gave you examples. The next section is proposals. These are examples of two different proposals. One, the first proposal is Ken and Dave's proposal, and the next one is actually Rick's proposal.
We have nothing of our own stolen.
The last section, behind the very last tab, right after the pictures. So it's the one that the Briar's kind of cut off. That says proposal for driving services for the Lakes of Beaver Creek Apartment. Ken did this proposal and it's written out exactly what needs to be done, so it shows you what it is. And with his proposal, he writes out everything so that it has how much cement are clean, how much will be used to replace all the vent covers, what the total cost is with sales tax included. This project's $19,000. Now, it hasn't happened yet. Now, not because they don't want to, but because from what we understand, they're still waiting on funding.
It's federal housing.
It's federal housing, so that's usually a longer wait. But that's what, this is an example of that proposal.
Does that make it a government contract? Because that seems a whole list of rules.
It's not from our point of view. We're only dealing with this particular
Okay.
association of
So we get the government contract.
But I think that's part of the holdup is they can't get approval.
Okay.
That's what they're holding up. The one thing while we're on that I might mention, Ken is in Dayton. And Ken he basically works 5 days a week, but he doesn't really do much on Friday. And he refuses to do anything that requires an employee. Because that's with workers' comp, he doesn't want to have to deal with all that kind of stuff. And so he just does individual jobs. And he used to do a few multi-units, but the last couple of years, he said, I don't want to do those at all. I'm going to give those to you. So for those of you who work in communities where there are multiple franchisees, you might talk to the other franchisees and find out that they don't even want to do multi-unit and they'll refer those to you if you want to do it. So we do right now about all the Dayton stuff that we can that are multi-unit. And then, we try to trade back. If we have something that's even in our territory that's close, we're busy, we don't want to be able to give those in. And so we try to work together on that stuff. Where you've got 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 franchisees in an area, if there's a way you can work together on some of this, you might find that, like him, he doesn't want to do multi-unit. Don't talk to me about it, I don't want to do it. And so the reason we have his proposal was because that's when he sent us to review. He'd already written it out, he quoted it and everything, he said, I don't want it. I mean, he went for it.
You guys read that back and forth, you can't really put that in my, right?
Yeah, but you don't have to worry about too much about that with multi.
No,
If it's an individual job, you won't be able to.
yeah.
The next proposal is actually Rick's from Columbus.
Something else was told.
It's another one, but the reason that we kind of like it is because it has it broken down. So it shows on there, if you do 10 to 20 minutes, this is the price, 21 to 30 minutes, price, 31 to 60 minutes, this is the price. So it's already written down, and then when you plug the numbers in, then it calculates it on your own. So it kind of gives you an idea, because you can't go out to a multi-unit and do 12 vents for the same price that you're going to do on 282. So it is going to cost more. So this kind of, whatever you need to do in your market, it kind of gives you an idea. This also is what we use, or we've started to use to do the ones where I talked about the signups.
Yeah.
We'll tell people, if you want to sign up, if you have 10 to 20, it'll be 98. If it's 21 to 30, it'll be 89. And that way they get more signed up. It lowers the cost, but that way they know what it is going forward. So that's exactly how it's set up. So then we're not just making it up. Right. And that's the way he does it. Right, Rick? You go any lower than 59?
I do. Especially depends on the situation. Like, how easy they are, like, showing that picture with a quad unit that
Yeah,
easy on and all. I mean, we'll go shoot the 59 or whatever. We'll do the 25.
When
But
you're
still with
doing-
a higher than it, I think the advantage of having a little.
When you're doing condos, do you ever have issues like, people are home or you think you're gonna do 40 and you end up doing 30?
okay, when we have signups,
Well, these aren't necessarily signups, the management company wants us to do the work and they send in all the information, but very, I don't know, someone's door and they're not there.
because the management company's not paying, every individual has to pay.
No, the management company is still paying, but they don't give us access. They might not.
Oh, so you're talking interior cleaning when you have to get in.
Yes.
I don't think that we've ever had an interior clean job where we haven't had to work out with the management company that we have a key or somebody would let us in if they don't make.
It's been problem several. This last one I did with, I put a no-show fee on it. I said, I think I'm gonna do 200 units, and if someone's not home, they're still gonna pay $40.
This is what we did the last time when we had, the only one I can think of is Gateway. Gateway, we had a community like that, it was only 20 units. And they were gonna be all interior. There were certain ones we could reach from the outside, that's the picture with the car, and there were some that were interior cleans. Basically, we told them, we had worked with the management company to figure out a day. And so we told them, okay, this is the day that we're gonna do it. Everybody either needs to be home or they need to make arrangements to have somebody there to let us in. If they don't, they pay book rate.
Go back to it.
So when I wrote, we had one holdout. She wasn't gonna be there. She's not gonna do it, and so the cost to do them was $79 to do them when we did them that way. Hers was $245. I invoiced it at $245, put it on there, and that's what they
No
said.
apology.
That's actually what they told these communities they're gonna have to do, but we haven't done all of that.
And that's just kind of what we told them, because we said, we can't offer a group rate. The reason we can offer a group rate is we can use them all on the same day. We can't keep driving back for a group rate if you can't be there. And sometimes it sounds like you're being hard nosed, but I'm like, we can't manage doing this and, drive back there many times. So, what we did the last time, and I just got paid the other day, so it wasn't an issue. So. Oh, here it is. So the next section is, it's got a picture with a map on it. This is the map of the community that we did today. This is one of the things that when you're getting ready, so we'll go back and have you answer any questions that you haven't asked that you have thought of. But so say you've gotten everything, they've accepted the proposal, you're gonna do the job. First thing you wanna do is you wanna ask for a map of the community. You wanna know exactly what it is and what it's supposed to be. This is for several reasons. One, you wanna be able, for the guys to be able to look at it and see exactly where they're gonna go. Plus, it also has unit numbers on there, so if there's an issue, they know what the unit number is. And another big reason is because if you don't have a map, and some communities are built that look like they're close to the other community, you could actually clean the wrong one, which we've done. We've accidentally wandered into the wrong community, cleaned several. So a map is big and important. And one of the rules that I always have with it is they give us the map of the building, and I always ask the property manager, if I can't figure out, they have to tell me how many units are in each of the structures. That way, when the boys get to the building, they know in this structure, I'm looking for 8. In this structure, I'm looking for 5. In this structure, I'm looking for 4. And that way they know it's not so overwhelming. I'm not looking for 74 vents. Right now, I'm only focusing on 8. And if I'm missing one, which unit is it that's missing? Because that's what feeds back into the important part of taking notes on issues that you have, like the one today that was forwarded over.
One time we didn't do that. We would not necessarily clean all the vents because we didn't really count up how many we had cleaned. We were just cleaning what we thought we did. And then somebody called, oh, well, we missed that. This way, there's 5 in the building, we clean them. Not 5 there, and we report that. Yes, there's one here that's missing. So then we go back to there.
The next thing that's in the binder that shows you is this crazy map that looks like this. This was Landing of Oakwood Lakes. This is the community where we started out just doing individual cleanings. This was the map. So what I would do is and this is where the administrative part takes on a whole new meaning for somebody else who's got to organize all of this. I took the map and highlighted every unit that had to be cleaned. And I created the trail by which they would go to clean events, because until we came up with the idea of, this was early on, I don't even know what year this was, we wrote an invoice for every one of these people. So I wrote all the invoices for all these. They were all in order. They were all by unit number, so they could leave an invoice with every person because they were paying individually. Now, the deal with, yeah, and that sounds very painful, and it is, and we have come up with better processes. The rule with signups when it comes to signups in the community is you pay before we clean your event. We can't stuff it back in if you're not there. So if you don't pay. So we always work it out to tell them that, one, they have to mail a check or call with a credit card number or be home to pay. Those are the three things. If we don't have your check, if you haven't paid with a credit card number and you're not home, we don't clean your event and you don't get the group rate. If you want your event cleaned, somebody will come back in and it's full price. Period. Because if not, it's just like the other situation, you go back 100 times.
And one of the things we've done is we have a separate cell phone number, for this multi-unit business. So we've never put another phone in there on my desk that we publish that number, not my personal number. And so you call and it says, if you're calling, tell me what your community is and what you need and unit number and all that. And if you need us to give us a credit card, we'll call back. So that comes into a different phone. And it's a real big hassle because sometimes I forget to check that phone all the time. If we're really busy, you get a lot of calls. So, but that way it doesn't fill up your other phone.
The individual signups, I'm sure, and we've had where a property manager gives it to you to try to reach out to people. Do you do that? Because I'm like, I don't do that. So they can, you work with them.
Sometimes a resident. Oftentimes, I will charge the resident. They put together several. But somebody else has to do it. We
Yeah,
can't.
you're not individually reaching out to.
Property managers will let you do it all if you will.
Yeah. Know that all, I'm like, okay, I can't do it. I'm calling individuals trying to get them organized on a day and I realize I can't.
We did that.
Yeah, one time. One time, we all have it one time. Yeah. Yeah, like that's, I was like, this is a nice.
There were like 16 of them,
Yeah,
and I couldn't get them all.
by the time I was done, I don't know that I made.
They wanted to transition those.
So the next list in color shows you how we kept track of what happened when it was going on. So basically, it was all divided up. So this list followed the list that was in the bill, was on the map. So building 19, it showed the text exactly who had already paid, so they were good to go to clean it. If they needed to collect payment, what color it was, and all that kind of stuff, so that they knew exactly what to do when they got there. So the lead tech then used this when he needed to do the cleaning.
So the lead tech knows how much like each job is paying.
Yes,
Okay.
in that case, yes.
So
And is that for all the technicians or just the lead tech that gets this, or do they pretty much all know what the job is?
They pretty much know kind of what it's gonna be.
They think we're millionaires. They think we make tons of money.
Yeah.
You can pay more.
Yeah, you can pay more.
You don't let them know.
It was a became a multi-unit job, yeah, the multi-unit team did it. But it was signups. So that's the one that then eventually became the whole thing.
this one you charge more, $2, $20.
Yep.
It lasts.
Yeah, because it was sign up. And when you're talking about the techs thinking that you're millionaires. This is one of the exercises that I've done with them, and I haven't done it lately, but I need to. We had a meeting. We meet with the techs on a regular basis, so we sit down with them and go through things. We talk about the good things they do, the bad things they do, things they need to improve, all that kind of stuff. And for one meeting that we had on a board, I wrote down all these numbers, and they were all over the place. And they came in, and I said, "What are these numbers on the board?" I don't know what those numbers are. So we went through the whole thing, and I told them, I wrote on the board what they were, and I showed them. This is how much money we're paying a year in insurance. This is how much money we're paying for banks. This is how much we paid last year in fuel. This is how much we're paying in workers' comp. This is how much we're paying. And so then when I got to the bottom line and showed them, these are our expenses that are on top of everything else that you're doing. They all went, oh. I'm like, all the money that you bring is not going into somebody's pocket. They're all, that's not how business works. There are a lot of different expenses. So there are things you can do like that kind of help out. Yep.
It's not a big secret.
Right.
Like this, some months I don't make any money.
Exactly.
And all those things increase. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when I started, my liability insurance was $175 a month. And now it's probably get close to 4,000. A month. Like 36,000. No, this isn't count. And different states calculate all those things in different ways. Some is based on your payroll, some is based on your volume of dollars you bring in, gross sales. So,
the next flyer says your driver has been serviced, receipt for services. This is what how I talked about how we wrote out invoices for everybody. This is what we went to. And we've even done it now where we've even dropped off the address and we just put the amount on there. And so when we do sign-ups for jobs, basically what we do is after we clean their vent, we leave this flyer on their door and then they know that it's been cleaned. And then it lets them know it has the same wording that the condo flyer has on it. If they have any problems, call us.
That's what, stuff on the door.
We use tape and or they stick them, or they stick them in the door handles. It depends on the style of the building. Because you'll find in some condos, the number of condo cards you need varies. Because like the one building we showed you where there's 6 vents on each side, those are all locked buildings. You can't get inside. So you just take one notice on the front door and it applies to all 12 units. So it totally depends on the structure. Some building is different.
Have you ever had a problem with that? I've used these before, and association, I sent them a follow-up, and everything was done, blah, 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 but they wouldn't accept these on the list.
no.
That's
You don't
true.
think it's the invoice or the-
No,
It's in the letter.
we've done it before where I have run a list out of my system of who we cleaned and I've sent it to them and said, here's who we cleaned, and sent it to the property managers that these items will be done.
You want the invoice? If it's individual or they-
If it's individual, but if you use a notice like this, it's not necessarily what he's saying is, some property managers or homeowners associations require that residents have their drivers cleaned.
Right.
They don't get who does,
Right.
and you have to show proof.
Yeah.
What he's saying is they're saying that a receipt that's generic like this, they won't
Oh.
accept. It has to be an actual one.
Yeah, okay, so you don't use an actual invoice?
We don't.
You don't? Okay.
I did one of these, but I sent the homeowner association list, and
Yeah.
you want to want to be clean, and then the residents submitted this to them.
We haven't had that, but
I have to put it there.
sometimes they're okay. Sometimes property managers are okay. The next email is one from one that we recently did. Now, this is one time when the property manager, they organized who's gonna do individual They wanted sign up. This is a community, they're requiring this to be done. They're requiring everybody to have their driver's license, but they will not let one company come in and do that. They're making everybody be responsible for it. So basically, we told them that we would charge $89 a piece to clean up, plus tax, and they could sign up. And the property manager gave us all of the people's emails. So I emailed this one email to them and told them exactly, this is the way it works. Basically, we're scheduled to clean it, these are the dates are gonna be here, this is how much it costs. Because we offer a reduced price, we do not set specific times. So don't call our office and say, I want you to come to my house on Tuesday between 2 and 4. If you want between 2 and 4, that's an individual job, you pay the price. Because you'll have all these people that then want you to work around. And basically, so I told them, we work through the community in the order we come to your event. If you haven't paid ahead of time and you're not home, we don't close. You'll have to, it's for price. And we didn't, I think we had,
So then you are at that point, based on who signs up, you are then.
they gave us the sign up list. The property manager gave us the sign up list. I sent out the email and said, this is how you pay.
Right.
This is how it's gonna work.
This is already, they agreed to it.
Yes.
It's just a payment process.
Yes, just the payment process for your event is completed this spring. I think we only had one resident that didn't pay ahead of us. That's it.
So it
So,
made no sense because when you 55, $89. Well, who would have done the whole 200 for $30 a piece? When there's 55 people paid $5,000, who would have done the whole community for 6?
Yeah.
And I tried to explain that to manager after manager. In their mind, they won't. Well, that's just not what they want to do. So it makes no sense.
Especially because they're paying for it anyway, they can take it at $30.
So this is, you did this as a multi-unit with the air.
Yeah.
But it was $89, but you're only doing partial, you have to skip around all the apartments.
because it's way more difficult because you gotta figure out which this unit.
Right.
You're not just going and cleaning 5 minutes in this building, you've gotta, figure it out. So it does take long.
It really is hard work because they're skipping around all over. They're moving ladders, not just from this vent to this one. They're moving from this vent to that building. And then they miss one, they gotta come back. So.
Yeah.
the
And
guys
in
are-
those cases too, what I try to do is get the map and get the addresses that people are gonna do it, and highlight them all on the map again, so the boys know when they go to a building, how many they're looking for, to reduce time. So it does administratively take longer, that's why you just want to clean the whole community at once.
I got a quick question.
Yes.
Have you ever run into like a property management group that says they don't want to refer something to graduate with you, but now they're responsible, blah, blah, blah? How do you kind of approach that?
Yeah, we've run into that a few times. And I mean, there's not much else you can do except just give them a quote and hope that you get chosen or they choose somebody else to come to you later. That doesn't happen very often, at least anymore. It did initially, but property managers, I've found that they're really interested in somebody taking care of their customers. And we tell our guys here, our techs are our customers. Then people we do business with are our tech's customers. And so just like that, the property manager, their customers are their people in their communities. And so they want to keep them happy. They want somebody to do a good job. And I've actually had them say, we're really interested in you doing this, but you have to do a good job because we don't want a bunch of complaints. Problems. So I don't know how you deal with it one at a time, but we haven't had too many like that.
I have one or two like that before where they said that's why they kind of put it on the homeowner. They find somebody, and then they're kind of liability wise.
Yeah. Then I go back with a low price that they can't hurt it. And when we started doing a lot of this, I had this idea that what we're going to do is we're going to have the price low enough we can make money, but so low they can't reject the offer. And that has really helped in eliminating some of the competition. Because like the Fireman Squad, they told me they can't afford to do it for less than $60 a thing. Well, that means I can do it for anything less than $60. So but initially,
Good luck.
there were communities that we've done for as little as $18. some for 20. And that was to keep the competition out. And they found a lot. Apollo Heating and Air Conditioning is a big HVAC company here. When I first started, the guy there told me, if you'll do this and do it well for a year or so, you'll have all the business you can handle. Because most of the people like you only last about 3 or 4 months. And they love it. And so that's what I'm counting.
Now, why was that? What was the driver? What, that they couldn't?
They tried to do it too cheap.
And they don't do a good job.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still tell you this when you go to training, but when we started, they said there are 3 things that people are looking for in service. And that is show up on time, clean up your mess. And the 3rd thing is price, but it's also the 3rd thing. So if you do a good job, show up on time, that's what people are looking for today. And so we do that. We clean up our mess and we charge what we have to get by, but as time goes on, there is one. So some of those communities where we charge $18 or $20, now we're charging 30. And
That's a good question. So how do you determine when to change the price?
when you
Say
know,
you've been doing it for 5 or 6 years. At that point, or-
I usually tell them, you know, how it is with everything else, gas prices and everything. We have to raise it. And I always remember I was in the insurance business one time and State Farm always had the process for the way they did business. I don't know if you're State Farm people, but every time they billed you, your price went up just a little bit. Maybe only 1 or 2 or 3%, just every time. And so I talked to State Farm people and they said, well, our idea is we never come out with a 15% rate increase. We raise it 1% or 2 every time you get billed, you get used to that. And you don't even think, oh, it's gonna go up, oh, that's $3. And so that's kind of what we try to do, raise a little bit of time as you go along.
They raise their rent every year, so we can raise our price every year too.
You just have to be careful, and that's one of the things I'm always cautious about is you get too independent. You know, like, oh, I should go 30, this year I'll go 35, next year 35. When somebody comes in and takes it, so don't get greedy.
Let me agree with the valid point, and I guarantee the apartment complex raised at least 3% on rent.
Yep.
And that's one thing, sometimes you have to also talk to the property managers about and say something to the effect that they're looking at the bottom line, like, it's gonna cost $7,000 to clean the dry, you know, and they're like freaking out, and I'm like, yeah, but it's gonna cost everybody $35 each. I mean, I guarantee you they blew $35 doing something lunch. Yeah, Starbucks, you know, whatever. Yeah, and so there's, you know, there's so many ways you can, if you're saving them, because book price would be, you know, $189 or whatever, so you're still saving the money. And back to your question about the whole idea of they won't recommend you. One of the things that he's really good at, somebody from that community will call in and they'll say, well, I have to get my driveway cleaned. And he'll ask, so are they requiring everybody in your community to get your driveway cleaned? Yes. Okay. Well, you know, if you can get a group of people together, we can give you a better discount. And that's when you get someone in the community to organize it for you, because when they find out they can get it cheaper, they'll start going around finding everybody and their brother, and then you can get more.
But
And
oftentimes
maybe-
you can go ahead and do that job at regular price. We tell them, you give me this whole community, I'm gonna give you a limit.
Yeah.
And we do. And so that makes another second person.
Yeah.
So,
The next thing in the book is where it says caution external emails in the middle of the page. This is, the kind of community we're talking about called Park Place, that we've done before, the one that we get like $400 a unit out of. This is the email that we sent to the property manager about what our pricing is for that community. And so basically all he wanted in writing was he was gonna go to the board, because they've also, Park Place has also done this thing where they've had signups. And now this year they've decided that basically they want to require everybody to have it done, because again, it's one of those situations where the same people are having it done over and over. So this lets you know what the pricing breakdown, what we're charging them, exactly what it is. Sometimes they have us clean the bathroom fan. And then the property manager came back to us and asked, in the past, who's had it done? And I kept records of every year, so then I was able to send him this list, I only chose one, of all the people who've had it done there. So, and what I do on places like this is in QuickBooks or in my record keeping, rather than keep it by name, because I know this is a community that we're gonna do over and over again. In QuickBooks, I put it in by unit, not by name, because the units will switch over. And that way I have a history of the unit number. So if I ever look it up, I can look, if somebody calls and they just bought the condo, I can say, well, they had their net clean 2 years ago, because I know it's by unit number, not by name. So that kind of gives you an idea of those interior jobs, how we try to do how that works. Now we're gonna get into documentation. And I've given you some examples of some different ways we've done it. It depends on the community, and it depends on the property manager, and it depends on the person who's taking notes. I'm the type of person, my background is, my degree is in elementary education. And so my whole, basically the way I've learned and the way I learned to deal with people and work with people is you take their gift set and you adapt to whatever it is. For some people, they're very visual. For other people, they're very, they think things differently. And so sometimes with some property managers, I have to give them pictures because they can't figure out any other ways. For some of the guys who document, pictures are easier than writing it out. So I basically work with whoever I've got to give them their information. But this is an email that we sent to Adina at Miami Bluffs. Basically, I send the email and I I attach the invoice to the email and basically put in the email exactly what needs to be addressed. So in here, I've written out everything that needs to be addressed and telling them specifically what needs to be done. But then on the next few pages, yeah, Adina. Then in the next few pages, you will see there are pictures. And basically what happened is the tech then, who was doing it, who actually was Adam, circled exactly where the vent was and drew an arrow and put the building number on the photograph. So I included all the pictures in the email with a description of where the vent was. It says that as you're looking at the front of the building, the second, roof vent from the left is disconnected from the roof, and they can see the picture. So that way they know exactly which one's broken, because sometimes it's really hard. I will guarantee you with working with property managers, there are some property managers that we are doing with that have never actually stepped foot on the property that they're managing. They don't even know what it looks like. They don't even know what the buildings look like. They don't know what you're talking about. And so in order to, because a lot of times what will happen is this information will be passed on to the board. And the board members are the ones that are going to be walking around the community trying to figure out, oh, well, that's Phyllis's vent. It's disconnected. So we need to call Phyllis and let her know that she's got to. And so what we do is that's when you start into this whole thing of doing repairs. And it's a time consuming process, but it's another service that you're offering that eventually when you go back to clean all the dryer vents, you'll clean them all and you won't have an issue because you fixed them all, which makes it wonderful. Plus you're also ensuring the safety of the residents who live there and you're educating. And a lot of times property managers don't get it. They're like, oh, who really cares if the vents are blowing into the attic? It's not a big deal. Well, actually it is a big deal. And you have to kind of go through the whole thing. So that's why in the emails, I give them information to do all that so that they can go through. And this is one method that helps them identify which vent it is that needs to be fixed. So when we say we give documentation, that's one way that we did it.
How do you go out before the cleanings to take all these pictures so they can mark them, or do you guys take?
They take them on site. They take them on their camera, they take them with their phone, and you can mark up pictures on there on your own, and then they just send them back to me. And in fact, I know there's one on my phone now from today. This one is the next one. So there's pictures from that whole community. The next one is an invoice for Beacon Hill. Beacon Hill is another community that we claim that the boys read when it comes back up on the calendar. Beacon Hill are basically townhomes, and the roofs are like straight up, and they're all roof vents.
And they're like, I think they apparently are built with a basement. The basement's halfway out of the ground, So it's like, yeah, the front step is this aisle to the ground, and then there's 2 stories above that, and the pitch is about like that. So it's really steep.
And so this basically, you know, I went through the whole thing and told them this unit appears to be broken 2 feet from the roof. This one is disconnected and it appears it could be PVC. And go through all of that and explain to them, this is the reason vents can't be constructed of PVC. And one of the things starting out with all of them is you can always attach the building code so they understand why that is the case or why it needs to be done. In some cases like this where I didn't attach the building code, it's because these are property managers that work. They know. But then I give them more of the information to let them know exactly what it's gonna be. Highland Meadows is the fire. Basically Highland Meadows, all the vents are constructed of foil or plastic in the wall. They are all falling apart because they're so old, they're deteriorating. And so in this case, basically, we wrote everything out and where it says Olympic in here, that's another company that does repairs. It's actually a property management repair company that goes through. I think they really do painting and about anything, handyman.
Yeah.
But they were also replacing dryer vents.
And they clean dryer vents. They're in those communities where they work, so they're kind of.
So basically, when we did this whole community, they wanted to have all the dryer vents replaced. There are 400 units. Now, we had replaced, I think when this came out, I think we had done 9. And when these vents when I say these vents need to be replaced, they are a real problem. They have a lot of turns. The reason they use foil plastic is because they were wrapping it around everything all over the place. It was everywhere. And so basically we wrote this entire thing to let them know that basically this place is ready to burn. Because one of the things that we learned a long time ago from a fire inspector was you can, if you're the last people to touch it, you're going to be the one that they all point the finger at. And so we always document and write everything out and send it back to them so it's in writing and say, it's now on you. If you choose to do nothing.
And sometimes we say that right in the letter we write back to the email. We're informing you of this because now the monkey's off our back, so to speak. And it's yours. You don't have to do anything. You can call us back and we'll fix it and call somebody else, but they need to be fixed. So you know. Because we did have a visitor, fire inspector. We know he didn't know a lot of this, but just want to warn you, you better be doing it right. Because if there's a big fire, we're coming after you. So that's what's like business. That's what we tell our guys. You've got to do a good job because if you work on a house and the house burns down and the word gets out that we just did it, we didn't do a good job, we're all out of jobs. It's serious business. So I think that has inspired them to they do a good job.
And we get pushback. I mean, like in this case, on this community, we got a lot of pushback because the price to replace them was pretty expensive. It wasn't something we could do, and they kept saying, the property manager kept saying, can you do it for a better price? Can you do it for a better price? And we're like, these aren't easy. And you know what? This is not on us. We didn't build these buildings. I mean, we're not fixing something that we caused. We're trying to figure out the best price and the best way to do this to help you, but there's really not much more we can do with this. This is what it is, and you're going to have to figure out what to do. And to our knowledge, they haven't really done anything. Now, we do have another community called Woodland Hills. Woodland Hills is the community that's built in 3 phases. One of the phases is in really good shape. They did everything to code like they were supposed to. And that's one thing you'll find when you go out and do project. You'll figure out where they change subcontractors. When the dryer vents change or in general things change. And what happened in this community was they changed contractors, and in one of the phases, all the dryer vents were made out of foil, vinyl, semi-rigid, all kinds of things taped together, whatever they had laying around. And that community did decide they were going to have all of them replaced. And so every year we clean it. And every year we think we're close to done doing it. And we got it down to the point where we could do them for about $400 a piece. And we have done, I think, 120. that we've replaced completely. And every year when we clean it, we give the property manager another report that says these are the ones that are left and still haven't been, changed. They didn't have to use us, they could use another one. But we also give them a report that says, this vent was changed, but whoever told to put it backwards or, and let them know this is exactly what's going on. So there are some communities out there that really do want to, make it right. And so,
One of the problems here is that what they really need to do is take it a building at a time, and maybe the association paid for it, just go do the whole building, even if it took them 5 years. But what they've done is they've had each individual pay their own. They're a lot of rentals because they're condos, so I buy a house, I move out, I keep it, I rent it to you, and so now you're a renter, you don't have to drive in and fix it up.
Yeah.
So you never call us to get it fixed, even though the owner has to pay. But because the owner has to pay, you have to call and make a point to do it. And so it takes forever to get this all replaced. That's why we have owners, now they're threatening, they threatened in the last 2 years with an attorney right now. So it gets to be a real hassle, and we stay out of that. Even when the resident tells us, oh, I can't pay that, I can't do this, I don't know why they're making me do this. We're out, we don't talk about that, that's your deal. Talk to your property.
I had a question kind of adjacent to that. So when you discover that, how much, like in your initial assessment, how extensive is that to kind of catch some of that on the front end? And so, when you're out there looking at a property, are you checking multiple buildings to see what the construction is? Or are you going out there more visually looking to see kind of from an efficiency standpoint? Okay. Yeah.
We only really discover this when we do the cleaning. A lot of times I'll tell people, hire us to do the cleanings and we'll come back with a report is what really happened.
Yep. So the price that you're quoting on is based on what it would be, assuming that all the vents are made of the proper construction, and then when you find those issues, you then just bring them up to them after that. Okay, cool. Thank you.
So whenever you do your initial walkthrough on the property, to quote for the first time, you never let them know like all these screens or.
If we can see that, we might have that you're gonna need to do this in addition to the cleanings. But I would say typically we don't. We do the work first and then come back with the report. So I thought.
and because when we
You give a discount when you do if they need all of installation. Now, you already give them discount on the cleaning, so if you have to go back and do the installation, you still give them discount even much more.
the $400 was a
Yeah,
discount.
that was a discount.
Oh,
But we were gonna do a bunch of them.
okay, all right.
If we just go back and do one or do a transition or.
Right.
Yeah, it's the book.
Yeah.
When I first started, I was giving everybody a discount for
Yeah.
everything, just to get the business. But then I noticed that didn't really make any difference. They were gonna get it fixed, I told them to, but because we were there, we got the job because they had a good price on the cleaning. And that was their discount. Anything we did inside, it's just a book.
One of the other things we do when we do the cleanings, when it comes to like the vent covers, if they have the vent covers up, especially the sidewall vents that have the grid work in them, or if they have a screen in the roof vent, we always take it out. It's always cut out and taken out, because that's to code what a dryer is supposed to be. And then in the report, I tell them, we're taking them out.
So you don't get permission to take those out,
No.
you just take them out, you never got.
We've had a few people complain about it, and I just say, that's code. If you want us to do it, we do everything as near what the code says as possible. If you don't like that, you're gonna have to get somebody else, because we're not gonna be responsible.
Not for protecting today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grid out.
We didn't ask anybody.
Sidewalk.
But then you said you go back and you get replaced.
We will try to get that replaced. They haven't really hurt the vent cover, except next spring, birds will build nests in it because the grid's gone.
And we really haven't had anybody complain about that. When we explain why, they're like, oh, I never really thought about it. Plus, then we send pictures. This is what it looked like. The reason that they're all plugged up is because all the lint's sitting right here, and now it's backed up into the vent.
You mentioned code, I'm sure.
And nobody wants to
Yeah.
go against the code. They want to be legal.
The next one showed you the one for Churchill Estate. This one showed you. This is a community that they thought it was a great idea. The next page is pictures. they thought it was a great idea to put screens on it. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what keeps the birds out. And this community is full of a lot of old people. And they yelled at our boys that they are not allowed to take those screens off the fence. So, they're still on there. And that's why I wrote this big epistle that basically said, that is a no-no. You cannot do that. You are going to have fire. You're clogging your vents. You're making our job easy because you're clogging the vents all the time.
And we get to reclaim them every year.
And we get to reclaim them every year. So, and these do take longer because after they've done this, the boys have to struggle with trying to figure out how to clean it and put the screen back. So that was that one. The next one is just basically a community that we did that just let you know about 3 dryer vents that couldn't be located. This one kind of was written out, one goes in the window well. One person told us their dryer vent just went to the ground. They didn't know where it went. And so we basically told the property manager, and this community had a fire. Not a dryer fire, but another fire. So they'd already had a building burn. So we were very diligent in letting them know what their issues were, but no, they didn't do anything about it. So they're still like that. The next one is, this form is in the book. And this is another form. When we started out documenting how to keep track of what needs to be done. This community was a nightmare. As you can see, this shows you exactly the building number, and they would do it as they did the assessment as if they were standing in front of a building. So the building on the left side, the first floor, the front vent, and they could clean it, but the pipe was rusted out. So they took notes on every vent. Now, if you notice this form is filled out. I only printed the front page of this. This was 4 pages long. That's how many issues were in this community. The next one is the invoice that we sent them for that job. And then the next one shows you the evaluations that we did. And so I took that list that the boys wrote up and typed out this list that said, these are all the vents that need further explanation in their community. So it has all the stuff in it. It says the village of South Creek, the dryer vents that need further explanation or repair. And these were all of them. I sent this to the property manager. I said, these buildings were all locked. So we couldn't get unit numbers. I didn't know what unit number was which one. So I said, you're going to have to take this list and you're going to have to figure out who lives here. And she did. So.
And this assessment was all done from the outside.
Yes, the assessment was all done from the outside. So you can see it's 2 pages long. All these things were broken. So then the next page shows you it's color coded, because then what I did was I color coded what was happening. Green meant it was repaired. Red meant that it had been quoted, but the customer hadn't done the work. Purple said they called initially, but the appointment hadn't been set. Blue, the evaluation of the work is scheduled to be done. And orange, there was a new issue that was identified. So what we did was they would send us the information for them, and not all the names are on here. They were on a separate sheet. I would send the property manager an update as this is what's happening. These are the people who responded. These are the ones who had it. And so this color coding then let them know how we were doing and what we were doing with all these repairs. And then the invoices were sent directly back to the property management company, and they paid for it. Now, they probably assessed the homeowners back, but that's between them and not us. So then it lets you know that basically as it progressed, they all went green, except there was an issue that had been identified that hadn't been, and there was one guy who had initially called and not done it. And then basically there were 2 buildings that all the roof vents pointed to roof readers and they needed to change, but that was the community's decision. That wasn't the homeowner's decision. So that was another method that we used to communicate. It always changes. You just have to figure out, and I just gave you these examples because this is how we did it. Whatever works for you works for you. This is what worked for us in different scenarios. Because, like I said, some buildings are locked, some buildings aren't. Sometimes we can find the unit numbers, sometimes we can't. Sometimes we can only go off descriptions. But, we got all this taken care of and worked with the property managers to do that. Granite Springs is the next community. Basically, this is talking about how there are a few vents that need to be explored because they're broken. But then we also noted that there were buildings the buildings were built in phases. So a lot of communities, like we started out with one community when we first started cleaning it, they had 180 units. Then they built 2 more buildings. So then there was 202 units. Then they built some more units, and then there were 240 units. And then they built some more. So they built them in phases. So in this one, these buildings here all had bad vent covers. So we told them specifically which buildings in that community had bad vent covers. Most of them were okay, but these buildings really needed the vent covers replaced. So they should focus on that. In this email, it talks more about how we don't like to determine which vent covers want to be changed, because what happened was after we told them these are the vent covers that need to be changed, then the property manager came back to us and said, okay, if you need to change some vent covers, you just go out there and pick out which ones you think need to be changed and change them. I said, oh, no. I'm not gonna pick out which ones need to be changed, because I'm gonna change Gail's vent cover, and she's gonna be good with that, but then Bob's gonna be screaming at me because I'm not changing his. Because I thought Gail's looked bad and Bob's was, because that's what happens, because somebody's getting something new and I'm not getting it new. How come they get theirs replaced and I don't get mine replaced? We say, you have to decide, and you need to decide how to do it, and you need to decide how to do it in phases. If you want to do certain buildings this year and then do some other buildings next year, then you and the board need to decide how you're gonna do that, because we don't make those decisions. Because that's something you don't want to get, your contract is to do the work. You can make recommendations, but you don't want to be the final say, because you're never gonna win. Yeah, like Sherwood Lakes.
We have community complaints since day one almost. And when the no pest vent cover became popular, I presented that to them and they wanted those, but they couldn't afford it. There's 362 units. They wanted no pest vent covers, but they couldn't afford for us to put them up. So they said, can we just buy the vent cover? I said, sure, I'll deliver it. So I ordered the vent covers, I took it down and gave it to them. Well, then 2 or 3 years later, when we're cleaning, we find out they got all kinds of problems. Birds and vent covers falling off, and we got to look at them. The maintenance guy put them up. Some of them got one screw in them, and they're twisted and they're warped, and they don't close, so the birds can get in anyway. So that was probably about 12. And then a couple of years ago, I went to him and said, you really got, I was completely ignorant. I went to a board meeting. I said, I sold these vent covers. Somebody else put them up. We didn't put them up. But I don't know who put them up, but they didn't do a good job. And the guy that put them up I felt kind of bad about that, but it's reality. And so they finally, this year, decided, like Brenda said, they want them all replaced again. They would pay and have us do it. It was what? $7,000. So we go down there with a bunch of guys, clean the vents, and then we replace the ones that we thought they wanted to replace.
But before we replace the ones we wanted to replace, we asked them, what ones do you want replaced? All the ones that don't function
The ones that are
correctly.
bad.
The ones that are bad. Well, in our view, the ones that are bad are the ones that actually don't work. First, we get in them, they don't work. So I actually went down and took pictures of them and sent to the property manager, said, these are what we're talking about. These are the ones that are wrong. We need you or someone from the board to come when we're replacing them and approve and watch what we're doing.
We don't care which ones are replaced. You just tell them. We don't want to be the site.
And she said, I don't have time to do that. Just go do it. That was our mistake.
So then, when we got them done, the board says, we want all those old vent covers. Unfortunately, we had saved them all. Put them in big garbage, they count. Make sure we,
really?
yeah, they're getting money's worth.
What?
So they wouldn't pay us.
Why did you do a walkthrough?
Exactly, that people are complaining to live there.
And they watched us put them up.
And I sent them copies of the emails that we sent them saying, we asked you to come and help us decide, but we don't decide. But since you didn't show up, we did what we thought was best. So they still haven't paid. Now, they told us to deliver the vent covers, and honestly, I just delivered them only.
Yes.
I turned them all down, set them in the clubhouse. And met with the property manager, said, here they are. I don't know what you're gonna do about that. Well, as is typical, the property manager is now new. She looks like she's about 12 years old. The property manager we dealt with before is now gone.
It's gone.
Probably because they were having problems like this, I guess.
And we also found out that there no one left on the board that was on there before. They cleaned house and they have all new board members.
So you saved them, but
We saved them all. Yeah. Yeah.
Was that
Is
Mrs.
that
Broken
standard
Heart?
grammar?
No, we knew that they wanted, that they were interested in that.
Oh,
We
you-
had them.
okay.
At first I told them that they wanted to come get it because it's, I don't know if you're familiar, it's south of the airport. Cincinnati Airport, so it's like 50 miles. And I had them sitting here forever and finally I stood in the truck last Monday morning. I just put them down there. Met with property manager, said, here they are. And you can see, some of them look okay because once we took them down, they're no longer put up for, you know. So
We explained that to them and told them this is exactly what we were dealing with. This is what was wrong with it. This is what happened. We weren't, we were trying to do what you asked us to do. And this property manager did admit that she knew the whole story and she was aware of what had happened. So
I think we'll get paid. We hardly ever don't get paid from a monthly. I don't know.
We could hardly do it in a time.
I don't think there's ever been a time.
No. there's never been a time that we've not been paid. There have been times we've waited a very long time. Yes. But we always get paid.
Just word of.
And then
Do you ask for a deposit for if it's a new property that you hadn't done and it's particularly large?
Sometimes we kind of got away from that if we know the property manager, we've done all the work for.
But if it's a new relationship and they've ordered all of, they're getting all new vent cover.
we take a deposit on that.
We do.
When we did Pigeon Forge, and we were ordering all those net covers, we took a deposit because we were paying out
What do you,
25%.
25%.
25%?
That way we got at least enough to pay for
The vent
the
cover?
vent covers and maybe help put them out.
This next picture is actually, this is where we're talking about Granite Springs. This is Granite Springs. So this is their map. And so on it, I went through and wrote down exactly how many units are in each one in this column. So the boys could see how many they had in each one, and then there's a color coded idea. But then on here where it says circled roof vents. So on here where these are noted, that's where there are roof vents in this community because all the rest of them are sidewalk. So the next time we go to clean it, we know where the one-offs are. So one of the big things you want to do is keep notes of what you're doing so that later when you go back, because like the next one is Ramsey Commons, and in this case, this community, they have one building and there's a huge paragraph about it. And it's so funny because I keep all my documentation, I keep all my emails. My job before this job was I worked for a company that did all data analysis, did electronic data discovery in small cases. So I know all about email trails and how it's good to have documentation. It's also nice because when you have to send a report to somebody and you get the report from the boys and it's the exact same issues they had last year, you can go back to that email, highlight everything that you had last year, forward it and say, these are the same things I reported last year, and point to them if they haven't done anything. In this case, they have a building that has all roof breathers. We haven't been able to clean the vents for 3 years. They've still not dealt with it. So that lets them know that we know and we told them. And in this community, it shows you the map, and there's one person that moved, relocated their laundry. So when the boys clean it, they know the pattern stays like this, but there's one vent that's a one-off. So that's the one that you look for, and they'll make sure you don't miss it. Oh, okay, the next one. The next one is Pine Glen. This is an example of a community that we did. Okay, so this community is nice, it has all this chicken scratch on it. This chicken scratch is mine. I ended up cleaning this community with the condos. It just so happened that the way it works, our job is to organize the work, but our job is to also make sure the work gets done. And if they're short a worker, I'm the other person. So that I don't get on roof. I don't clean the roof for the boys. But I put up all the flyers. I can run the back. I can pull hoses. I can take notes. So even this fall, we did a couple days because we were short and we wanted to make sure to get condo work done and keep the individual boys working. We didn't want to pull them off. So, and it keeps you humble and it keeps you real and it really lets you know what they go through all the time. It's not a bad thing to do because you're living and you see what they see and then you start to think about your expectations, how you want them to do things, and you know, the kind of junk they take from people while they're working, all that kind of stuff. But in this community, when we went to clean it, all these notes were my notes I was taking while I was cleaning the community with them. And then when I came back, I wrote this report to the property manager to let them know exactly what needed to be done. He wanted us to replace eyeball vent covers if we were cleaning if they were broken, so we did that. But in his community, I created 4 colors. Orange indicated that the vent is a roof vent that's in a roof breather. Pink, a roof breather is like it's a cap that they put on the roof so it breathes, but it's not a right. Yeah, here are the square boxes that have like this about the side of them. So when the wind blows into them, then that all fills up.
One every 30 days.
Yeah, we've seen like it's just like air vent.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And there's no release though for.
right. There's no damper in it. There's no release for the wind to get out. So they're just blowing into the breather, which means that as it hits the breather, then it fills back into the attic. So that's bad. Pink indicates they cannot be located on the outside of the unit, which means it's somewhere. It's in the wall, it's in the ceiling, it's in the roof, somewhere. Yellow indicates that we put a new sidewall vent cover up, and green indicated that the vent appears to be broken. So then if you look at the next page, then I sent him this color-coded map that showed him exactly which units were an issue. Now, as you notice, like I said, you were contractors, there's a whole side of the building, nothing's wrong with it. Everything was fine. It was all on this side. So basically then we went back and he gave us all the contact information. And then I sent him an update of here's what we've done. We replaced the breathers on the roof vents and I told him which ones. And then I explained exactly which units we still had issues with that we needed to get information. Because the next map shows the notes that were taken when we were there. When we came back, there was one unit we thought it was that unit, but actually it wasn't roof vent, but it was actually crossing around the roof vent at the opposite. So we had to go ahead and communicate with him to do all of that. So we communicated with him and did all those. And then in the end, I could send him an email and say, these are all the things we done and everything is finished and send him an invoice. So by the time we got done, we cleaned the community and we charged them, I think, $35 for each cleaning unit. And by the time we finished repairs, it was.
Cleaning was a couple $1,000.
But the repairs
Were like $400.
$5,000.
That's kind of what you have to do, I think. You have to look at that. You get cleaning, but then you can follow up with all this repair. And I think that's what a lot of students haven't really done there though, because they leave that repair alone. Follow up. And here it's especially important because we can do that in the winter when the snow's on there.
You know, we had a community, I mentioned earlier, we have one that we did not long ago, and they had 32 roof vents that were either breathers or they weren't out of the attic. And we replaced all of them. So we did 32 roof vents.
Oftentimes what's going to happen is whenever you find repairs to do, property manager's going to write you back and say, how much you going to charge to do this? Well, really, you don't have any idea because you might have a pipe that goes to the roof that's just falling away from the vent cover. You throw out there with a piece of tape on it, and you're done. And then you might also have one that's falling completely over and the pipe is all bent and strung. Well, that's different. You might have a pipe that's broken in the ceiling, you're going to cut drywall. So I've struggled with that for a long time. In the last couple of years, this has worked pretty well. And I kind of size up what the most expensive thing is going to be. And I said, we'll fix them all, price not to exceed $300 a unit. And so if it's $89, no, we'll do it for $89. Whatever it takes, you know, it might be $450. But that way they have an idea what they have to spend in my fix. And we've had more success with that because program manager will write back and say, fix it.
I'm sorry? Kind of put the limit on there. So.
Yeah. We charge like, great.
And the one thing that you'll run into with all of that is, you know, it comes down to some of these repairs haven't been made because the property managers say it's on the homeowner, we don't have anything to do with it. The homeowner owns it, it's their responsibility. Utilities service their condo, it's their responsibility, we're not doing it. And it's true, but you know, we've gone back to a lot of them and said, they're not gonna fix it, and they're gonna put it, and they're creating a liability for everybody. You can tell us to fix it and you can assess them back. Or you can decide that the HOA is gonna pay for it or whatever, but in the end, if you don't do anything about it, the monkey's on your back. Not on ours, it's on yours. Yeah. A lot of times they will, and what we do when we have repairs like that to do, we've got a couple now we're working on, there's a list of managed repairs and we're working on getting all that information. Most of them now that we have a good relationship with, they'll give us the property, they'll give us the homeowner's name, but we always tell them, property managers, send an email or communicate with the homeowner to tell them we're gonna be contacting them because the vents were cleaned, because they have an issue, because what happens is they think we're just trying to sell stuff. And that's not, you know, you need to let them know, and so then the property manager will email back and say, I've let them know you're gonna be contacting them, so, you know, here's their information, so that when you reach out to them, I'll be expecting a call.
It's even more ideal if you can get the property manager to tell them to call you. And that way, they call, they make their own appointment, we don't have to try to chase it down.
The last one in here, this community is called Today Homes. And basically, it just shows you, this is kind of a weird one. But if you look at this map that's colored after the email, it shows you, it says on here, completed in 2015, completed in 2016, units rerouted to the garage, completed in 2017, completed in 2019. In this community, they put the dryer bins and the bathroom bins together. Routed both of them together in one hole, up mostly into roof breakers. That's all it is. Yeah, but it's the same address from the last place. They're traveling around town. And so what they did is they didn't have enough money to put roof vents on everything. So what they did is they asked us to go in phases and replace roof vents. And what this is telling them what we completed when. And then the last page shows them exactly what's yet to be done, because then the property manager changed, so then we had to go through this whole thing and explain to them. So we explained to them, this is what, there we go, the lady, and the reason this all started is because there was a little old lady who lived in the community, who was on the board, who was really worried about it. She was the president of the HOA, and she's the one that started the whole project. Mary has since passed away, but they are still working on this project. And so now this lets the property manager know, because some of them are venting into garages too. So this lets them know this is where we are in the project, and they just emailed us the other day, and we skipped 18, as you can see, and we didn't do anything in 20 because they had other projects that they needed to do. And so they just emailed us the other day and are meeting again, wanting to get this thing done. So there are projects that will last a long period of time, depending on what it's done.
Initially, they allocated like $10,000 a year to fix the stuff. So they had these two vents going up in the one roof field. And we went there to clean them, and we couldn't clean them. So we ended up shutting the roof freezer off and getting them to clean them, and then when we got in there, we saw those ones in garbage, one's bathroom, and those that we still spare. And it was just a disaster. So we figured out a way to fix those without replacing the roof and all other things. Now, what we're dealing with is that roof will come in, goes to replacing the roof. The roof said we didn't do those right. Obviously, we didn't do it right because there were no alternatives. Let's do a roof on it. So I have to go next week and explain to them how we did it. Which I can do that. I even have pictures the way it was before that. And then it sounds like you're gonna go ahead and do the rest of it. And I imagine what to do is put big roofs on, ideally, as bad as they were, the roof should have been torn off. And those vents should have been rerouted individually to the outside in the roof when they're ripped off. But when they're both right here, and there's nothing we can do, once they're ran like a 312 fit, so there's no room in the attic for the whole work. So I think we'll get it done, but it's gonna be a little bit of a hassle. Taking years. But they're also. Now, we've gone through a lot of stuff. I know you probably a lot of you have questions, but my biggest concern was that you guys coming a long way, spent a lot of money coming here. I want this to be something that's worthwhile, something that you really did get what you paid for, even though this is questions to give you. If you have questions or anything that you want to answer, we'll do our best to answer. So, it's up to you. Okay, anything, any questions?
Yeah. Have you done like neighborhood, single family home neighborhoods, worked on that multi
Not
unit
much.
thing?
We tried that, we passed out flyers, but it just doesn't fly. Literally, yeah. But it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
We tried that. You have enough?
I thought maybe 4 or 5 each ways left. 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Like preferred vendors list?
That's the whole community.
I tell them. And the least is kind of for why you.
They call this an urgent response business. And people aren't really interested in you unless they got a problem. When they got a problem, they want to fix it now. So you can go to somebody with a good idea, let's clean all of them in the street. I don't have any problem on this. That's right. Fortunately, because it is urgent, when they have a problem, they want you to come to that. That's why you get messages same day service. Did you ever define one? Define to do it? All right.
There was a couple we did bid on, and we were like, yeah, and they did. So we were like, oh.
We learned that, especially with the ladder situation the way it is today. We're only people that find a ladder in the city. I mean,
Even on individual.
even our competitors will refer us.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that thing.
On the roof.
So you just taking them like cutting it where it gets.
Yeah.
Put the stuff back on.
We take it.
Yeah.
There's a place 5 miles away, it's called Flamin' Rubber. And when the spinner gets locked up and it won't spin anymore, or they'll go in the hole, we just take it down there, I know something about Carlo. Take it down there, they cut it off. They press it on there, I can't hold that. You have to have it rubber.
Right, and that's what we've done. I mean, we've had a couple blow off, so I'm not really into that.
Yeah.
And it went into bed, so I'm not really. And on a typical day, when the boys are working, they would bring the trailers back in here, they would back the trailers in here, and then hose would be soaking in that, over there in that tub, there's mineral spirits.
Okay.
And the spinners would be in the mineral spirits tonight, all night, soaking, to get all the lint and everything out of them, dump it in there, and then we'll brush them out.
You brush them out and blow them out.
Blow them out.
Blow them out.
Right. Get all the gummy stuff out of it.
You do that earlier, and you had that, you had the heating and you had them know your compressor. So that's something I think I'm not. What's that process look like? You just kind of go ahead and do something to see that can be applied. That air.
Explain what you breast people. I just wanted to stand up, set out the president of the company. This is what we need. So, you know, something smaller, take it out on the elevator, going around in the hallway, whatever.
And so why?
It's not gasoline.
And gave me the stats they did. I found one already made.
Yeah, that's what they can work with.
But they don't, they basically.
Going back to pricing, do you price each house with a business or you still do like?
Oh, mostly, yeah. We can go pretty low, so.
Because I used to say text, the plans are too low, and text.
That's why I said probably, man, I want to go into it. I need information. I agree. Early on, we had a guy who was I did my first technique, and he wanted to be paid for like that. My idea was, that he would do this job, supervise. So we got a job to come out and check on. They're all kind of, you run both ways. One time they did. Yeah. At one time, I got everybody had Yeah, trying to sponge website now. Having a book to reference that. Having a book to reference that. Yes. I'm gonna go to sleep with this book. Right. Yeah. How about the? They've got.
Oh, yeah.
I got my flag.
Look, that goes down.
I'm usually not.
Now, what is